There's a lot more books in this studio than it looks like. They're everywhere. They're all down here. Stacks of them. There's a whole shelf you guys can't even see. All that, there's books all up in there. Yeah.
All right, good morning, everybody. Welcome to the Gnosticacademy Academy of Lord Jesus Christ. It's your old Uncle Marty, back at it. Here we are. Welcome. Really appreciate everybody that shows up this morning. We do service every Sunday at 9 a.m. Central Standard Time, and that's why you're here. So we really appreciate everybody that shows up. We got a long one for you today, and we're going to fly through a lot of this stuff, so strap in, and it's going to be good. So let's first do a prayer, and then we will get into this. O Divine Logos, I rise today and give thanks for the gift of this life. I ask you once again for your guidance and strength to see me through every hardship and difficulty. I request that you transform my hands into yours to be used as the working tool of your will. Grant that every faculty of my body may serve only to glorify you, and above all, give me the strength to see what has always been, the kingdom of God, without and within. Please deliver me into the way, that I may attain to the holy gnosis, and have a share and inheritance with all the saints and adepti who have pleased you since the beginning. Transform my soul and all its powers so that my memory, will, and affection may be the memory, will, and affections of Christ. In his holy and great name, amen. Okay, so as you saw, today we're going to talk this is Sunday service number 141. Let's learn to discern. Deconstructing the Archaix Phenomenon is what we're going to talk about today. So, and like I said, this is going to be a long one. We're just going to launch into it, and we'll do a little introduction here, and then we'll get into some meat and potatoes as we do. So we're going to be talking about, really, this is not a specific attack or anything like that against specifically archaics here, really. Really what we're doing is using this archaics phenomenon as a way to learn to discern, a way to learn to how to do proper research, a way to, when somebody makes a claim or proposes something or, that sort of stuff, or presents some sort of theory, how you can actually go through and say, hey, is this true or is it not true? Is what he's saying correct? Okay, so archaics is... It's actually an acronym. It's the Archaix is the advanced research of the chronological history of artificial intelligence acts. The corpus of this meticulously documented and source-backed research derives from over a quarter century of data mining. As you all know, Archaix was a fellow that spent about 20 years in prison and read a lot of books and things like that. And has a lot of books on his bookshelf and things like that. And so that's what he's, basing his research and theories on. And as you can see, yes, my face is... It is what it is. So anyway, the Phoenix phenomenon is what we're going to be talking about a little bit today, and as well as some other things. And the Phoenix, the Phoenix returns May in 2040, and the Phoenix Arcanum is basically talking about resets, mud floods, cataclysm protocols, pole shifts, and mass vanishings. Excuse me. And a pole shift, I'm not exactly sure how a pole shift works on a flat Earth. And if the north is in the center and the south is the outer ring, does that mean I'm not exactly sure how that works, but the Phoenix, every 138 years, undergoes the damage artificial intelligence X has caused and the loss of historical integrity, mankind's ability to keep the calendar of benefactor protocol. So this is what this gentleman is talking about, that basically every 130 years there's this Phoenix cycle that comes, and apparently there's a vapor canopy and all that other stuff, and we'll get into a little bit of that today. So this is what, so we're lots of clips today, so let's listen to this one here to get this thing rolling.
This is why, guys, you only got 16 and a half years left. We got 16 and a half years. It's not the end, but we have 16 and a half years left till the Phoenix phenomenon. So you need to get educated as to what is being conveyed to you in these alchemical texts. These alchemical texts are basically screaming to you because they can't write it down. They can't just say, hey, this, and this. And the reason is I'm really starting to come around to the idea that there were good guys, and there probably still are some good guys among the learned. I'm not talking about government. There's no such thing as a good politician. I'm not talking about government. I'm talking about in Scholastia, in academia, sages, wise men around the world. They're still good guys, but they haven't in the past been able to just come out with it. If they would have come out with it and prepared everybody and told everybody, then 1902 would have happened very differently than it happened.
Okay, so the first problem that we have here is he's projecting into the future. For those of you that follow, we actually just did an entire live stream, several on this notion. What he's doing is called divination. That's what it is. It's the practice of attempting to foretell the future or discover hidden knowledge through the interpretation of omens, signs, or events, or by using supernatural powers. Now, just so you guys know that in legitimate astrology, if you look into scripture and things like that, whether that's Old Testy or New, divination is a complete no-no. It's very much poo-pooed. Okay, we actually read directly from King James, his book on demonology, if you'd like to go and read that. And no, it's not about demons. So it's actually talking about some of the holy and sacred sciences. Divination is asserting that a person has a specific prophetic view of the future events by engaging in the holy sciences impiously. And that's what we're going to see here today. He engages in these holy sciences, and those holy sciences being alchemy, astrology, the zodiac, and that sort of stuff, impiously is what he's doing. And basically all it is a rejection, in general, a rejection of one's free will, but it's putting thoughts and notions into someone's head without the actual knowledge of these future events. And he doesn't have knowledge of these future events. As we're going to see, we're going to show that his Phoenix timeline has gaping holes in it. And what he's doing is projecting into the future using things that allegedly happened in the past. And not only that, as we're going to see, he says alchemy is basically a Jewish trick. He says the zodiac itself, meaning the 12 houses of the zodiac, is essentially a Jewish trick. And not only that, he calls the Yahweh or Jehovah, that sort of stuff, literally a demon. So that's what we're going to talk about today. So hence why I don't really have a really desire to reach out and be buddies with the guy, okay? So the reason I'm doing this today is because people have asked me about Archaix for well over a year or change now. And they assume that his research is just bulletproof. And this guy said here, no offense to Michael Nicholson here, but he said, "Hey, Marty, I've been a long-time fan. I was just curious. Have you ever looked at Jason Brashear's work over at Archaix YouTube channel?" Yes, I have. Yes, I have. I know it fairly well anyway. He has an amazing background in world history, chronology, and calendrical systems, and he has brought very interesting and so far irrefutable. And this is essentially what a lot of the fans, what's called errants, believe, that his work is just absolutely irrefutable and he's never, that sort of stuff. And what we're going to see is that there's huge issues with what he's presenting, okay? And we're just going to walk through them today. Once again, this is no attack to him personally. This is no attack to any of the people that follow him personally. What we're going to do is just do a scholarly and studious deconstruction of the claims that he's making and show you guys how, number one, how to do legitimate research, but then also just show you that what he's saying is nonsense, okay? For the most part. Isn't to say that he doesn't have some good things to say. A broken clock is right twice a day. Now, I didn't want to do this. In fact, I was going to do this, and then I decided I didn't want to do it. I was just going to leave it be, and then because of, I'll show you we'll just go on, and I'll show you why I'm doing this. But there's reasons that I didn't want to do this and don't even want to do this. Number one, I know that this video, just because it's controversial and things like that, will get more views than any other video, essentially, that I have. And I don't care about that. That's not why I'm not doing this. Anybody that puts the accusation out there or something that, oh, you just don't understand Archaix, or you're just jealous, or you're just doing this to get views, any of those people that make those claims or accusations in the comment section here, you will be booted. That's not what we do here. We are a church. We care about truth. And what we're going to show is that this guy does not. And that he's making bold-faced claims that can be easily refuted. Number two, let me say this. It will get more views than any of the other much more important videos that I have to offer. Okay? And that's unfortunate to me. I don't like that. I would rather the other people, anybody that's watching, go watch 10 or 20 other videos that I've made besides this one. Okay? I don't want the negativity that comes with this. And I absolutely said that. I don't seek out negativity. I'm not trying to get in people's faces. I'm not, you're a shill. I don't do that. Okay, so I don't even like the negativity that comes with this, okay? I'm not here to pick fights or attack anyone. That's not what we're here to do. I'm not doing that. I'm just going to show you that the things he's saying can be easily refuted, okay? And have huge problems, okay? Number four, I honestly do not want those who think Archaix does good work to come around this church, because the people, as I've found, and I'll show you this today, the people that do follow Archaix, they love bomb the guy. It's very much, this is how it appears anyway, very much idol worship, and those people have no intention of actually being discerning, which we're going to learn today, critically thinking, or researching the sources in which he claims that he, has built his timeline and things upon, okay? So I don't necessarily even want those people around here. So it's definitely not, oh, I'm trying to get views. Number 5, I'm not here to clean up messes. That's not what we're here to do. And I've made this statement very clearly, especially over the last few years. We do what we do. We speak the truth that we do, and we just let the cards fall where they may. And that's it. So once again, before we get going here, just a little introduction, a little caveat. There will be no mentioning of Archaix's criminal past in this in this live stream. I'm going to mention it because I have to, of course, but we're not going to talk about it. I'm not going to make any claims or accusations about any of that sort of stuff, nor will I allow that in the comment section or in this chat. If you come here and be like, yeah, well, he raped a girl 20 years ago, you will be booted. I don't care if you're a regular at this church, okay? That's not what we're doing here. And any comment below this video that says anything like that, it will be deleted. Okay? That's not what this is about at all. We will not talk about it here, nor will any comment that mentions it be allowed. I'm taking a hard stance on this. None. Okay? What we're going to be doing is looking specifically, scholarly, at the claims he's making and refute them. That's what we're going to do today. That said, I must bring this up because Archaix was going to be invited to this conference that in, I think it was California, called Music and Sky, and he was going to be one of the lead speakers. And I said that if he was going to be invited, I wasn't going to go. And just so you know, there were several people that were invited to that as speakers that contacted me personally saying, I don't want to go anymore now because Archaix is being invited as a lead speaker. So even though we're not going to talk about the alleged, past of Archaix and things like that, 20 years ago he allegedly raped a girl, that's not our concern today. I don't care about that at all. As far as I'm concerned, let me just say this: if we're going to give any faith to our justice system whatsoever, if he did the crime, he did the time, which means that's it. Anybody that wants to bring up 20 things that happened 20 years ago when we really don't know, that is actually, I would say that's not being, very genuine with the fact is like, hey, well, he paid his price, okay? So that's not what we're going to talk about today. But that said, he did have a co-host on, and I don't know how long he had him on for, several months or maybe a year. I'm not exactly sure. But the guy ended up being charged with sexual abuse of a child, a 14-year-old. Now, since we're going to be talking about discernment today, because it's very important to be discerning, what we're going to see is that he's not even very discerning about who he allows in his personal close circle. Could you, and this is the point I want to make, could you imagine if Owen Benjamin, if you found out that Coddington Bear was a pedophile and diddled a 14-year-old, do you think that the internet would ever let that go? Do you think that Reddit would not immediately have a page being like, I told you so, he's a Jewish pedophile or something like that? No, they would harp on him and hound him and, that sort of stuff. But apparently when it comes to Archaix, that's no problem. This just gets washed under this here just gets, water under the bridge, if you will. Now, the important point is that Music and Sky, this last one, was a thing for family. It was a family event. So the notion of allowing somebody that has in his close personal circle somebody who's sexually abused a 14-year-old as part of your main, I just don't even know what to say about that, okay? This is lacking discernment is what we're showing, okay? So that said, let's keep moving. So this is the particular post that actually got me to reassess doing this live stream. And this is what he said. This was a community post, and I responded, and he responded, and we'll read all of it. Here's another evidence from the old world of the secret knowledge of the Phoenix Phenomenon. Every 138 years, there's a Phoenix phenomenon that happens, and its connection to both the underworld and the book of Revelation or Apocalypse. This is a painting in the Republic of Macedonia at the Asagovo Monastery depicting the book of Revelation. At the center is the phoenix and the mountain showing its interior to represent the underground where the elite bed down during these reset cycles. The phoenix is beside John the Revelator. To see hundreds of examples of this arcanum of the elite hidden in plain sight, see the Occultus Mysterium. And this is exactly what we'll be deconstructing today, this particular video. So this is the particular post that I made on the comment among several. And so this is the picture, of course, that he was referencing. So this is the top there, and then, of course, you see the centerpiece right there. You can clearly see, well, there's John the Revelator, there's Jesus Christ on the right there, he's got the 7 candlesticks, he's, coming in the clouds, that sort of stuff, and then there's the Phoenix. And there it is. So therefore, and this is exactly what his community post is about, therefore that's a reference to the Phoenix phenomenon that he's talking about. Well, this was my response to him. St. John is part of the Tetramorph Archaix. He is often known as the eagle or the phoenix. Luke is the bull, Matthew is Aquarius, and Mark is the lion, Aquarius or the man. It is the 4 fixed signs of the zodiac. That's what it represents. This has literally nothing to do with your alleged phoenix timeline, nor does that mountain have anything to do with the elites. It's symbolic of the mountain in the center of the earth, literally encoded in countless cosmogonies around the world. The audacity that you have in posting trash like this is truly something else, because what it shows is that he has no idea what he's looking at all. This is the tetramorph. This is actually, we just went to St. Louis a few months back with my folks. And we visited, I don't know, 4 or 5 cathedrals that were there, that sort of thing. And that's what you'll find in, I think, every single one of these cathedrals is the tetramorph. And the tetramorph is, of course, it's actually a representation of the 4 fixed signs of the zodiac: Scorpio, Aquarius, Leo, and Taurus. And the eagle is Scorpio, and I'll show you that. So there's Luke, there's Mark, there's Matthew, and there's John, and of course this is the 4 fixed signs. Now, we went all over Europe, several trips to Europe, and that's what we did. That's what we do when we're there. We visit cathedrals. We go in and we spend, as much time as I possibly can in every single one of these, absolutely epic, feats of architecture is what they are. So this is the tetramorph. It's Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. And here's and these are all pictures that I took. Example after example after example. Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. Scorpio, Aquarius, Leo, and Taurus. The bull, the lion, the Aquarius, the Scorpio/eagle. And I'll show you that in just a second. So if we're going to say that this here is a representation of the Phoenix phenomenon, as he's saying, well then, what do the other things represent here? Is there a man-angel phenomenon? Is there a lion phenomenon too? Or is there a bull phenomenon? There's just the eagle phenomenon. Why? Because it fits his bias. He sees this, he sees the phoenix, and he's like, that's a reference to what I'm talking about. And you're disregarding the other 3 that are shown in temples and cathedrals and churches across the world. It's not even in contention. And this is, once again, a representation, the tetramorph, there it is, once again. This is the 4 fixed signs of the zodiac. It's the 4 living creatures with the 4 evangelists, and you'll find a reference to this in the Old Testament. We'll get to that. The man is Matthew, the lion is Mark, the ox is Luke, and the eagle is John, which is going to show you that the 4 Gospels are astrological. It's all astrological. That's what it is. Now, mind you, let me just say this before we get going. The tradition that we purport and we talk about and we, that sort of stuff, talks about this all day long. There's volumes of literature showing that the Bible, both Old Testament and New, is astrological, and it's based on those 4 fixed signs, and then, of course, the rest of the signs of the zodiac. Scorpio is represented, so this eagle, this phoenix, and it's known by, both of them, basically. Scorpio is and this is well known in astrology. You can ask any astrologer that's worth his salt knows this. Scorpio is represented by multiple symbols. The most potent symbols that stand out are the scorpion, the eagle, and the phoenix. Scorpio is one of the water signs, the others being Cancer and Pisces. It is a fixed negative sign. Scorpio is associated with 3 different animals: the scorpion, the snake, and the eagle. So every time you see John, you'll see him with this eagle/phoenix. And this has nothing to do with his Phoenix phenomenon. And if it did, well, then you're going to have to assert, why is he always shown, or more often than not, shown with the other 4 Gospels? And what do they have to do? Is there a lion phenomenon? Is there a Taurus phenomenon? The holy mountain, and we'll actually see this today when we get to the bottom end of it, he's basically saying that there's a mountain in the center there, and this is where the elite bed down during these reset cycles. And that's what he's showing. This is exactly what his claim is here. There it is. There's the mountain in the center, and this is where the elite go to bed down when the phoenix shows up, and there's the phoenix, and that's his claim. Well, if you actually look all throughout alchemical illustrations, you'll find that they all talk about the holy mountain that's in the center of our creation. And this is understood, once again, in cosmologies across the world. On the left there, it says, this is the full, I can't exactly read that. This is the hill which God desireth to dwell in. This is the hill in which God desireth to dwell in. This is the holy mountain that's in the center of the creation. You'll find countless examples of this. This actually comes from a book I have here. This is the Christian Rosenkreuz right here. You can't really see it, but anyway, this is a book here, and it's got a bunch of old alchemical illustrations. There's Robert Flood himself. We'll talk about him a little bit today. You can see here a lot of little really great stuff here. So is my books. So there's that. So the Holy Mountain is represented all over the world. Hinduism, Buddhism, Norse mythology. There's a metaphysical, if you will. There might be a mountain in the center of the earth. No one's been to the North Pole, so no one could possibly, substantiate that. So here's a world mountain in the center of our creation once again, in myths around the world. This is actually represented as the axis mundi. Axis is actually an anagram for a six. It's the 6 directions that rest on a 7th point. This is exactly the introduction of Genesis, 6 days resting on a 7th, of course, right? And you'll find this all over. I'll show some illustrations further on. And what this is a representative of is man is, this is exactly what it is. The axis mundi is man as a reflection of the entire thing. Man represents a reflection of the entire cosmos, and we'll actually see this in alchemical illustrations. This is represented as the Hermetic adage of as above, so below, the law of correspondence. And of course, when we talk about the zodiac, we're not just talking about some animals in a circle in the sky. Those animals, the circle in the sky, actually are represented on the human body. And this is known as the zodiac man, or the anthropocosm, the microcosm of the macrocosm. And this is known, once again, like in alchemical illustrations and things like that. This is well known. And so what he's going to say, and you'll see him say this, that all of alchemy, this is a Jewish trick. All the zodiac, it's a Jewish trick. That's what he's going to say. And we'll take our time to refute that today. So once again, here's just loads and loads of examples of this. So it's not, when we talk about the zodiac, we're not just talking about things in the sky. We're talking about how there's a reference to us below here too. Not only that, I just did a video, and I'll show that in just a second. Not the video, but just a screenshot of it, of basically showing why those constellations are put where they are. Why Aries is the horns, and why it's the head, because that's your hippocampus. Why Taurus is the neck, because of your jugular notch here, and the fact that this is called a cervix. Cervix, sir, is horn, head. That's what it is. So this was the response when I was like, hey, that's completely wrong, Archaix. He said, the zodiac is a pure Jewish invention, as is alchemy. All of this alchemy, the entire corpus of alchemy, all of the mentions of the 12 houses of the zodiac as we understand them today is all one big Jewish trick. This is his response to me. And all of the esoteric interpretations that we actually find from Christians that were alchemists that write extensively about that, all of it is esoteric interpretations that are just given to the goy who think that they know what they're talking about. So all of these actual alchemists that wrote about this, that actually made the illustrations, everything they wrote about it is all a trick by the Jews. And of course, what he's going to do is basically break the magic spell, if you will. All of that's a trick, but I'm going to show you what the true meaning of all this stuff is. I'll just say this. Do you have any idea how narcissistic that is? Do you have any idea how self-righteous that is? Do you have any idea how self-involved and self-important that is? So once again, here's another clip.
Green damn more. I'm not arguing that. I'm not talking. Don't confuse the two. I am not launching an attack against astrology. I am merely offering evidence that the true science of astrology, which is ancient, was very recently hijacked and put into this construct. This is not old. This is deceitful. The astrologies of the ancients was far purer. This is an artificial version imposed on something far more ancient.
Okay, so you heard it right there. He's holding up the zodiac, the 12 houses of the zodiac, the belt of the zodiac, the 16-degree belt, and he's showing you, he's like, this is fake. This has been laid over to real astrology and things like that. And, that's his claim. Well, we're going to show that that's complete nonsense. First and foremost, if you actually read the mystery tradition, pretty much anybody that's worth their salt will tell you that the zodiac is as old as dirt. It is insanely antiquated, and we actually have no idea how old it is. But as far as we can tell, when we go back into the literature, it's very old. probably thousands upon thousands and thousands of years old, as far as we know. Now, of course, we're talking about the Western zodiac. We're not talking about Eastern Chinese zodiac. That's not what any of the alchemists are referencing. That's not what the Bible's referencing. That's not what Homer's referencing. That's not what, Hesiod is referencing. That's not what Polybius is referencing. So when we say, hey, well, this was a different zodiac or something like that, well, we're going to have issues with that. Anybody that's worth their salt knows that the zodiac is, once again, extremely antiquated. This is Carl Anderson. He wrote The Astrology of the Old Testament. Great book, basically, once again, showing that the entire Old Testament is astrological. It will show that astrology, or that which is written from the beginning, to be unalterable and under fixed and immutable law, and that everything and all things emanate from one Almighty Father, the one God, and that by means of this study of divine science. That's what it is. Astrology, just like alchemy, is a divine science, and when you trash it and are not honest with it, what you're doing is shitting on things that are sacred. And this is why I'm doing this today, because that's unacceptable in my world. It will be purged of all nonsensical, and by means of the study of or divine science proves all prophecy to be astrology. All the prophecy that you see in the Bible, and then Jesus is going to come, all of that is astrological. It will be purged of all the nonsensical claims to anything supernatural or claim to anything but that which is an exact science, sublime and holy, which has existed longer than we have at present any history. And that's what we're saying, and handed down by the great and wise of the past. And then E.W. Bullinger, who wrote Witness to the Stars, great book that once again shows both Old Testy and New, is astrological. No one can dispute the antiquity of the signs of the zodiac or of the constellations. No one can question the accuracy of the ancient star names, which have come down to us, for they are still preserved in every good celestial atlas. So, I did a video called Debunking Archaics in 3 minutes, and it was a preface, a preview, if you will, a preface to what we're going to talk about today. And of course, I got a load of people attacking me and things like that, and we're just going to watch it quick. And all I did in this video was, here's Archaics making a claim, and then we're just going to read right from the author and say, well, your claim is incorrect. That's all this video was, period.
1000 BC, Phoenician historian Sanchuniathon wrote a very compelling, interesting history in the pre-Greek times of the unfolding of ancient events, not a hint of a knowledge of a zodiac.
Sanchuniathon, Phoenician history, translated from the first book of Eusebius. And it says here, but there were certain animals which had no sense, out of which were begotten intelligent animals, and were called Zophesimon, that is, the spies or overseers of heaven, and were formed alike in the shape of an egg. Thus born out Mot, the sun, and the moon, the less and the greater stars.
Livy, Roman historian. You guys know I love my Pliny the Elder. Pliny the Elder wrote natural history. He wrote all about the stars. Nowhere in Pliny's works does he mention a zodiac.
Natural History of Pliny, Book 1. And it says here, various circumstances in nature prove to us that there are impressed on the heavens innumerable figures of animals and of all kinds of objects. In confirmation of this idea, we may adduce the zodiac, in which are 12 figures of animals. Through them it is that the sun has continued its course for so many ages.
Strabo. Strabo was a Greek geographer. I read his material. He also wrote about the Great Pyramid. Not a hint about the zodiac is anywhere in Strabo's material.
And here we have the Geography of Strabo. It's an English translation by Horace Leonard Jones. And he goes on to say, however, the reader of this book should not be so simple-minded or indifferent as to not have observed a globe or the circles drawn upon it, some of which are parallel, others drawn at right angles to the parallels, and still others oblique to them, or again, so simple as to not have observed the position of tropics, equator, and zodiac, the region through which the sun is born in his course and by his turning determines the different zones and winds.
His counterpart, equally intelligent and prolific in his writings, was Diodorus Siculus. Nothing about the zodiac at all. We have these writings, nothing.
And we have Diodorus of Sicily here. 12 of these gods, they say, hold chief authority, and to each of these the Chaldeans assign a month and one of the signs of the zodiac, as they are called. And through the midst of these signs, they say both the sun and the moon and the 5 planets make their course, the sun completing his cycle in a year and the moon traversing her circuit in a month.
Not a hint of a knowledge of a zodiac.
Okay, so now basically what you're going to see is that his response to that video, and I'll read it here, was that, well, the zodiac that they're referencing is not the zodiac that we see today. Well, the burden of proof is actually ultimately on him to say that that's not true. In fact, if I was to write a book, and so these are all authors that he said there's no mention of the zodiac in there, and then they actually mention specifically the zodiac, but he says, well, they don't go and actually talk about the 12 houses of the zodiac, okay? Well, it presupposes that if you're reading the book and he says zodiac and he doesn't actually go in and explain all the zodiac, that whoever's reading the book, the knowledge of the zodiac is already there. Just like if I wrote a book and I said computer, and I said computer several times in the book, but I didn't tell you, well, you need a RAM and a screen and a mouse and a keyboard, and then there's software and hardware, all this other stuff, and I didn't tell you all of that. Well, I wouldn't need to, because I already presuppose, it's already assumed that whoever's reading this knows what the hell a computer is. The same thing is happening with these ancient authors. So he said boldface, he's like, no mention of the zodiac. In one of these books, by the way, it was on page 2. But now he backtracks and says, well, no, it's actually not the zodiac that we see today. And we're going to see that there's a problem with this. Now, the reason that I made this video is that I was performing an experiment. That's why I put that video out before I did this, because it wasn't because I wanted to get a bunch of views. I don't give a shit about it. But what I was, number one, was to show that, look at this audience. Look at the audience and the truther movement and things like that. Boy, did they love controversy, don't they? Instead of actually learning about, God and all of this other stuff, people will flock, just as you see here. Most videos, this is the 500, 600 views, something like that. But this video, Debunking Archaix, wow, people, did they flock to it, right? And I also, because I was like, oh, people love their controversy, don't they? Well, we're trying to filter out those people at this church. We don't really want those people here, okay? Because we're not operating the view here, okay? This is a church, this is an academy. So as you can see, not that, even though there's, 4,500 views of that video now, it's not like all of those people even went to the other videos that I have, nor did they even care to show that, hey, the things I'm showing here, like the geometry of Jehovah and the mathematics of your hands, is 100% irrefutable. It's mathematical proofs, okay? So the other reason I did this experiment is because I wanted to see how his errants, that's what they're called, his errants, his followers, would respond. And it's exactly how I assumed that they would respond. Man up, bro, bring this to his attention. Well, actually I was, by making the video, and as you'll see, as you did see, I already responded to him. Let's hope Marty sacks up for a reasonable discussion about this. You may be right about this one thing. Jason will alter his stance, but now be a real man and debate him. Well, number one, who's saying that I wouldn't debate him? I never said that I wouldn't. But first, I have to make my case as to why I think the guy's completely full of shit before he and I were going to do our little dance. So immediately all these people came, wanted to defend him, cast stones at me, and did they even double check anything that he's saying? Well, that's what you're going to see, is that the 165,000 people that listen to Archaix, hardly a one of them ever actually challenges or double checks anything that he presents. The errants love bomb Archaix, and this is why people call it a cult. We're not going to talk about that today, but this is exactly how a cult operates. I'm not making that claim. I'm just saying that this is how it operates. You love bomb your leader. He can do no wrong. He's irrefutable. And then anybody that has any questions about it, they attack. The errants love bomb Archaix. But what do they ever challenge what he presents? And the answer is no. And that's what I showed in that video. He made bold-faced claims about the zodiac, and no, like I said, one of them was on page 2 of the book. You wouldn't even have to read that far. But if you do challenge Archaix, what is it? Oh, you're a troll. Marty Leeds is a troll because I'm simply saying, no, what you're saying is provably incorrect. And we're going to do a lot of that today. So he did respond to this video, and he said, I was wondering if any of you could point me in the right direction. As far as I can find, there was no knowledge of a zodiac as we have it today until the Greek period, etc. In Egypt, Greek, Ptolemaic, and Dendera, 500 years after Egypt had fallen, etc., in the 2nd century BCE. That is only the Egyptian zodiac. He goes on to say, even the Greek dating is questionable. All of the dating that we have for a lot of this stuff is questionable. Whenever we look at the history of humanity and the history of history, if you will. Do we have to put a big fat question mark on it? And by the way, before I keep going, that should be well established by people that he has on his show. He just had on Flat Earth British yesterday. They did a multi-hour live stream. Flat Earth, number one, he believes the earth is flat. He's obviously British. And he's a big Tartarian guy. Well, all the Tartarian people, I think the one thing that they can agree upon is what? We've been lied to about our history. We can't trust our history. But yet, in order to build the Phoenix timeline, he's actually not only trusting history, but cementing these dates as if they're absolutely provable. They're not. And the Tartarian people should show that. That should prove that out to you. Okay? So then he says listen to what he says. There isn't a single text in the world I am aware of that names these zodiacal signs from Aries to Pisces before 1800 years ago, the Tetrabiblios, which is, of course, Ptolemy's work. 1800 years ago, so that'd be roughly around 200 AD, okay? Now he's saying, well, that I'm aware of. Now the problem is that he's making bold-faced assertions, creating conspiracies, and he's showing you, like, this is an artificial construct, right? And then he's basing that on his knowledge of alleged history. And now he's saying, hey, as far as I know, there's no reference to any of the 12 animals of the zodiac before this time. Well, the only problem is there is. Okay, so there's that. And then he says, dividing the heavens into a circle and calling it a circle of animals without any details is not proof of the zodiac. Actually, once again, just as I said, it is. By just even mentioning any of these old authors mentioning the zodiac without going into the actual signs and stuff like that assumes that the reader already knows what the zodiac is. That's the point. But once again, he's making the claim that before 1800 years ago, 200 AD, let's say, right? There isn't a single text in the world. That's nonsense. This is the Ovid, right? This is a Roman poet. Ovid lived March 43 BC, before AD, if you will, all the way into 17 AD, okay? Was a Roman poet who lived during the reign of Augustus, if we could even trust any of this history. But once again, if we are going to trust the history, if we grant that all of this history is true, well, then we can prove Archaix's dead wrong. The Metamorphosis or Metamorphosis is a poem in 15 books, and of course I have it right here. And you can see there's right there, and you can even see, and they mention. Let's see, actually we'll get into that. I got a few images here, but it was then that the stars of the northern plow, which are known as the oxen, bathe in the sea. Likewise the serpent, whose home is closer to the polar ice caps, even Boötes, who guards the bear, etc., etc., was looked from the top of the firmament, just so you know, so they're specifically talking about constellations. We say, well, those are no constellations in the zodiac, if you will, right? That's not mentioning Cancer or Libra or whatever, right? Well, actually it does. This is Ovid's Metamorphosis, written allegedly from 2 to 5 AD, so roughly about 200 years before he's saying there's no mention of this. The Lordy Bull, capital B, proper name. What is that? It's Taurus. Experienced knows will generate a swarm of bees. Do you know what the swarm of bees is? It's a constellation in Cancer. It's an asterism in Cancer, and I'll show it to you right here. And it's the beehive. Where are we here? Dun, dun, dun. Just so we can be Henry David Thoreau. Where are you? So you can even see right there. There's Cancer. Hopefully you can see that. You see that? It's the beehive. So it's a reference to the beehive. And right by that beehive, by the way, is a big horse called Pegasus. And that's the horse, inhumed, will give birth to the horned birth. From there, a stranded crab and a Scorpio stings. What do you think that's a reference to? Scorpio. Cancer. Right? All of them right there. Now, this is, I think, the next page or 2 pages after. No, your path is beset with beasts. And, of course, the beasts are the celestial beasts that are lying in ambush. Your journey will take you straight to the horns of the charging bull, capital B, to let you know that this is a proper name, Taurus. The raging lion, capital L, to let you know that that's Leo. Then onto the scorpion, which is a capital S, to let you know that's Scorpio, and the crab, the Cancer, obviously capital C, to let you know, once again, it's a proper name of Cancer. Then, of course, you have the spirited horses, that's Pegasus and Aquilus. So right away, we can show that his claim, in which he's basing all of his theories, are predicated upon the fact that there was no mention of the zodiac. Do you know how popular Ovid's Metamorphosis is? It's one of the classic works of literature. This is in, I think, chapter 2. You can find this. So if he's writing in let's say this was basically turn of the century, this was written somewhere around there, right? Or it's BC into AD. Well, that would necessitate that the zodiac has been around a while. At least we would have to assume a couple hundred years if these people are writing epic pieces of poetry based upon it. Okay? So that's just one example of showing that his research is not very good at all. And which is fine if he made a mistake, but now he's basing theories upon this bad research and then extrapolating these theories and extrapolating into the future. This is extremely, extremely irresponsible research. This is Polybius. The histories of Polybius 200 to 118 BC. This is 400 years, 300 years before he's saying. As for the periods of the day, this is on page 577. As for the periods of the day, they may be observed by the shadows by the sun's course in the quarter of heaven in which it has arrived. But it is difficult to do the same at the night unless a man is familiar with the phenomenon of the 12 signs of the zodiac and their law and order. And this is easy to those who have studied astronomy. He's saying he doesn't have to write about, oh, well, there's a bear, there's a lion here, and there's a scorpion. He's saying, whoever's reading this, it's elementary. This is easy to those who have studied astronomy, which means in order for them to have studied it, this stuff would have to already be in place. Okay? Now, once again, you have Homer's Iliad and Odyssey. You mention Orion, the Great Bear, Boötes, Sirius, Pleiades. You actually find references to oxen and things like that in this, right? Well, now if you just understand the canopy of the stars, all of those stars are above, or those constellations are above and below the zodiac. Orion's below the zodiac, Boötes is over here, that sort of stuff. So according to his position, all of those other stars were known, but the belt in which the actual planets and the sun and the moon go through, that's all made up. They didn't understand it back then, and the thing that we have today is a false something. Well, once again, when somebody makes a claim like that, this is your basic reasoning skills. This is your basic rationale. This is your basic critical analysis. The burden of proof to him to say that the zodiac didn't exist back then, number one, we already showed that every mention that every person that he mentioned can show that absolutely they wrote about the zodiac, right? But so he's wrong on all of those accounts. But if he is going to make a claim, which is essentially a conspiracy, the burden of proof is on him to prove that the zodiac was not complete, not ours. We don't have to be like, well, we have to argue. No, as far back with all the extant literature that we have, which is not much, as far as we can tell, all of the great poets, and including the Bible, wrote specifically about the zodiac. Specifically. Every piece of literature that we have, not every, but once again, these great works like Ovid's Metamorphosis and that sort of stuff, all mention the zodiac. The fact that all of these authors refer to the zodiac presupposes that some sort of complete zodiac existed and had existed for some time. What he claimed in this video, regardless of what the zodiac allegedly looked like before 200 AD, was that these authors made no mention of it. Yes, they did. Like I said, one of them was on page 2 that they mentioned the zodiac. This is demonstrably false in every case. Now, the problem is not that he made a mistake. That's fine. But that that his theories are predicated upon this idea, that he's trashing the holy sciences. And the other problem is you have over 100,000 people, 100 and whatever, 1.6 thousand or 163,000 whatever people not challenging anything he's saying. They're just accepting it. He was 100% wrong on this, and nobody said anything. I say something without making any sort of claim whatsoever, and do you know what his people did? They came and attacked me as if I was just some troll, as if I'm just trying to get views. Of course, we know that the zodiac, we don't know how old this is. To date the Dendera zodiac is ridiculous. What are you going to carbon date that or something? No, we have no idea. Just as E.W. Bullinger has to say, just as Carl Anderson has to say, and just as I started this live stream, we have no idea how old this stuff is. But what we can do is actually look at every piece of literature that we have left and show that, well, it's clearly really old. Orphic, the Fanes. Now these are like newer illustrations. We actually have no idea. We have no idea. The one on the left, I think, is a mosaic. But Fanes is a god of light, and he was firstborn, the primeval deity. He was born from the cosmic egg. And do you know what we find around Fanes? This ancient Greek, right? This is of course in stone. You have the zodiac, just as you see it today. So once again, the burden of proof is on him to say, well, we're going to make some conspiracy. Well, this is not that old, or whatever it is, or that sort of thing. Well, once again, all of that is on his shoulders. Every piece of literature that we have that even discusses the zodiac at all makes reference to either the reader knowing exactly what the zodiac is, or specific stars, specific constellations. By the way, out of the mere hundreds, while an exact number of books is difficult to pinpoint due to the incomplete records and ongoing discoveries, the number of books written before 200 AD that still exist today that are extant are in the hundreds. There's not even that many. So out of the mere hundreds of books that are left from that period, how many of these do you expect to give detailed descriptions of the zodiac signs? Well, they don't even need to, because what they're saying is the zodiac exists, and it presupposes that whoever's reading this knows that. This is the most basic reasoning that you could come to, okay?
This right here is going to get deep. In the entire Old Testament, Genesis through Malachi, not a hint of the zodiac. It's not there. The Torah, the Tanakh, the Talmud, the Midrashic commentaries. Guys, let this sink in. Nowhere in ancient Jewish literature do you find a knowledge or recognition of the zodiac.
Now, what he's saying is in somewhat true, because the Bible does not come out and be like Aries. The Bible doesn't come out and be like Taurus. That's true, but that's not how the Bible is written, nor for the most part are a lot of like ancient myths and stuff like that written. In fact, the zodiac is actually encoded cryptically in it. That's kind of the reason for it, by the way. But just to refute what he's saying, no, we know Mazzaroth is in the Bible. Now they're going to put a conspiracy theory forward that no, there was interpretations or interpolations, that those words were added later because the Jews wanted to, misguide people and put this false paradigm over the top and that sort of stuff. So Mazzaroth wasn't actually in the Bible originally and stuff like that, which is just a conspiracy theory that is based on absolutely nothing, by the way. But of course, the Mazzaroth in Aramaic literally means 12 signs. And so we know that, hey, canst thou bring forth the Mazzaroth in his season, and canst thou guide Arcturus with his sons? Canst thou bind the sweet influences of the Pleiades, or loose the bands of Orion? So they're specifically talking about some of these main constellations in the sky, number one. But number two, that there is a zodiac. There, in order to fit his theory, his confirmation bias, that's a conspiracy. Oh, those were added later. Based on what? Not according to the Jews, because the scribes, their whole thing is particularly the Torah must be written specifically. Must be no fudging in that sort of stuff, okay? And they take their religion seriously, satanic as it is. But, and of course, he said the Talmud, nowhere, just look it up. The rabbis taught if one comes to make a town square, they're even talking about squaring the circle here. Earth is a square and heaven is a circle. If one comes to make a town square, he must make it as the square of the earth. The north must be towards the north of the earth, and the south towards the south, and his sign shall be, the zodiac of the Capricorn in the north, and that the Scorpion of the south. So you just heard him say, there's nowhere in the Talmud a mention of the zodiac, nowhere in the Bible a mention of the zodiac. That's ridiculous. And the problem is that we have the internet nowadays. We have archive.org or whatever. We've got the ability to order on Amazon any book that we want from great antiquity and things like that. And you can double check all this. The problem that we have is 163,000, 5,000 people, whatever it is, are not doing this. Then they're attacking people that do. The Bible is all astrological, and that's what we teach. In fact, we'll see the 12 houses of the 12 tribes of Israel, which is mentioned in Genesis, is a reference to the 12 houses of the zodiac. Okay, once again, our tradition writes volumes of literature about this. There's loads of books that talk about this, that detail, or at least give their stab at what they think the correlations are, because this is how the Bible is written. In fact, the next book that I'm going to do is going to talk about, it's the 12 disciples of the Zodiac. This is the next book that's in line that we're going to release. And basically what we do is show that, yes, the 12 disciples of Christ are referencing the signs. How do we know this? Well, Thomas, who was known as Didymus, is what? It means twin. Thomas means twin and Didymus means twin. Well, what do you think constellation that is? Gemini? So as far back as the New Testament was written, we at least have the zodiac, and that's all a fake paradigm or something like that. But we can also see the Old Testament references the zodiac as well. Okay? Once again, the Bible is astrological. And we can actually show that these stories are directly related to the stars. And I can't, to be honest, we've done so much work with this that it's really sad that 165,000 people don't come on over here and actually watch some of these 5-10 minute videos where we detail this. We go every Sunday and do Bible study line by line, verse by verse, chapter by chapter, book by book. Adam and Eve is Cepheus and Cassiopeia. They're up towards the top of the pole star in the Garden of Eden on top. And who's right there? Draco the serpent. We actually showed that the Argo Navis is the Noah's Ark. It's a big constellation in the sky, one of the largest, I think the largest constellation, I want to say. Don't quote me, but it's 3 constellations put together, Carina, Vela, and Puppis, and that is a big ark. It's a big boat. It is a ginormous boat. Right to the right of that boat is a dove, and right to the left of it is Corvus, which is a crow/raven. They're part of the Corvidae family is what they are. What does that sound like? Does that sound like Noah, who sent out a crow or a raven or what it is, and then tried to find some land, and then he sent out a dove? These are all constellational. So if we're going to say that these main stories, like the 12 tribes of Israel, which are representation of the 12 houses of the zodiac, and then as above, when we look at Adam and Eve and that sort of stuff, and then we go below and we see, we would have to assume that they knew all these constellations and they based all the stories on the constellations. But according to Archaix, they didn't know the zodiac in the middle of all these constellations. Once again, that is a huge. The burden of proof is on him to say that that's not true. Here's Cain and Abel. Of course, Cain slew Abel. Cain was a tiller of the ground, and Abel was a keeper of sheep. Who is this? What is this? This is Boötes, who is a tiller of the ground. And what is Origa right down there? Right by basically Taurus and that sort of stuff there. He's a keeper of sheep. That's what Origa is. He's a shepherd. Cain and Abel were the sons of Adam and Eve. Do you know where Adam and Eve are? Right there. Cepheus and Cassiopeia. Okay? So, and when was the Bible written? We really don't know. But if we're going to give any credence or grant, these dates are accurate, let's just say that, we'll grant that. I'm not even saying that. I don't even agree with that, but let's just say that. Well, that means that if they were writing these books about and clearly relating them to astrology, well, then that means the zodiac, just as we know it today, in general, maybe a variation, derivation here and there, but in general, that those 12 signs have been known for ages. If you were going to write Genesis let's just grant that this is when it was written. I'm not saying it was. I have no idea. No one does, actually. But if you're going to say that Genesis was written in 1445, whatever, right? Well, did that mean roughly in 1500 BC or whatever it was that they just made up the zodiac and then started writing epic books of scripture and poetry on them? No, we would have to assume that the zodiac has been around a lot longer than that. So this refutes everything he's saying about it and then basing his theories on. Now, when it comes to the Phoenix cycle, I actually believe in a Phoenix cycle. In fact, all the great cultures believed in resets, great time periods, risings and fallings of civilizations and things like that, cataclysmic events. This is not anything new. Archaix, when it comes to that conversation, is bringing absolutely nothing new to the table. Nothing at all. Even the Phoenix itself related to this notion of civilizations rising and falling, great resets and things like that. And of course, just the Phoenix itself. Once again, if you study astrology at all or just symbolism in general, you're going to see that the Phoenix rising from the ashes is a pretty consistent theme. And of course, this Phoenix actually, I believe, comes from Manly Palmer Hall, directly is like an eagle. It's just as we said that St. John is a scorpion, eagle, Phoenix, right? It's the 4 fixed signs: Scorpio, Aquarius, Leo, and Taurus. Summer, autumn, winter, fall, or summer, autumn, winter, spring, excuse me. The sun ignites the nest, and the old phoenix dies in flames. A new young phoenix emerges from the ashes and wings back to Arabia to live another life cycle. The bird's features have changed over the centuries, but most agree it's an eagle-like bird with shining red, golden, and purple plumes. Okay, so and we actually see once again this is the UN. Now look, pay attention, because this is going to be necessary when we get to the end of this live stream. That you see that there's the bird in the center there, and it's like shedding its old skin. It's like it's dying and being reborn, and right underneath there is a very chamber of death. And then what's above them? It's the Vesca Piscis, and all of you veterans here know what the Vesca Piscis is, exactly what it is. It's where we get the Jesus fish, etc., etc. The proportions of the Great Pyramid of Giza may be found within the Vesca Piscis, full stop. There's a man and woman marrying in the center there, is there not? Everybody see that? So the death and rebirth of this bird / eagle / phoenix rises up to a man and woman getting married. That's going to be really, really important when we move forward. So, and the phoenix, by the way, is, once again, as all of this stuff is, it's constellational. Okay? The phoenix is at the very bottom of our celestial sphere, which we'll talk about today. And that phoenix, that bird that's rising from the ashes, well, we can actually see right by phoenix, it's kind of cut off right there, but it's hydrus, you see that? The hydrus is basically a triangle. That's what it is, right? And its counterpart is hydra, right? Which is actually mentioned in Revelation and stuff like that. We won't get to that today. But basically what you see is a phoenix rising from the fire or the ashes of an old, its last cycle or whatever. So, Manly Palmer Hall has written about the Phoenix cycle. Once again, none of this is, particularly from Archaix, nor that sort of thing. Well known. Now, of course, Manly Palmer Hall was not being like, and every 600 years this happens on a particular date and we can build a timeline to this. You go ahead and listen to those lectures yourself. Nothing of the sort is he saying. He's saying in general, we seem to have a shift of an ages, and it's roughly maybe a 600-year cycle. Though in order to even substantiate that or prove that in any sort of way, we would have to rely on history. And once again, just as we said, he just had on Flat Earth British yesterday. And Flat Earth British is like, Tartaria, they've all lied about that. History's a lie. The settling of the America, it's a lie. Okay, all of that's a lie. But then we can use the dates of history to substantiate your timeline? Do you see the problem with this? To be honest, I can't even believe that I have to explain that to people, but it is what it is. That's why we're doing this today. So the Phoenix cycle is nothing more than the world ages doctrine. And it's been, once again, every high civilization has understood that. That doesn't mean because there's a world age doctrine and we have cycles and resets and cataclysms and things like that, that you can build a timeline on this based on history and then project into the future, which is divination. Of course, you have the bronze, silver, gold, iron age. Of course, you have the 7 ages of the Christian world doctrine, if you will. Of course, the Satya Yuga, Treta Yuga, Dwapara Yuga, Kali Yuga. I think we all know this. The Mayan long count cycle, that sort of thing. That is absolutely periodicities of change, great change that happens on Earth. Okay? Just because there's civilizations that have this does not prove in any way, shape, or form his timeline, which we'll get into right now. So here's Archaix's, he's got different illustrations of this, of timelines and things like that. And you can see there's the Great Flood, and it happened, according to him, specifically in 2239 BC. And then a few, 100 or so years later, or whatever it is, we had the Ogagian Flood. Okay, great. So here's another Archaix chronological chart. And once again, we're going to just pick out a few of these things. And what we're going to see is that I honestly can't even believe, I don't even know what he's saying here, right? Because it's just flies right in the face of common sense, reason, and rationale, okay? If this is the important point, is what we're going to do is we're going to look through this and we're going to point out specific things that can show that he doesn't even have his cosmology straight. Not even like, are we on a flat earth or are we on a globe earth here, right? But not only that, it's just like an equation, right? If you find out that he gets this wrong, and this wrong, and this wrong, and this wrong, well then it turns out that just necessitates that the product that he gets, meaning his theories, is dead wrong. You can't have 4, 5, 10 different things, a part of your equation to substantiate your theory, find out that they're provably wrong, but the product is still true. Okay? Now, by the way, it doesn't really matter what I say or what evidence I put forward. The fanboys of errants of Archaix are going to dismiss this anyway. I could show you proof after proof. I could go and absolutely deconstruct that things he's saying is incorrect, but it doesn't matter because that's not what it's about over there. And hence why I call this Deconstructing the Archaix Phenomenon. History is a set of lies agreed upon. If we're going to say that, and by the way, do we even know if Napoleon was a real dude? I mean, I don't know. Maybe, I don't know. But history is a set of lies agreed upon. I think we can all agree with that, right? Okay, so let's just look at some historical claims, some that we lived through. How about 9/11? That's in the history books. The date of when it happened is in the history books. Is anything that they said about 9/11 true? That's part of history, right? How about the Chicago fire up there in whenever that was? I forget the date, but Chicago fire, 18 something. Was that really Miss O'Leary's cow that tipped over a lantern and then burned like a frickin' war zone all of the old world stuff in Chicago? Was that really what happened? Because that's what the history books say. How about the 6 million loaves of bread that were burned in Germany? How about the 6 million loaves of bread? Was that were baked? And is that true? Did that happen? Is that a real photo? How about Christopher Columbus? 1492, Columbus sailed the ocean blue and then found out the earth is a ball and that nobody was here. Is that true too? If we can show proof after proof or claim after claim and claim after history, then how are we supposed to be like, okay, well, none of this is true, but Archaix has the right chronology and timeline? History is a mystery. That's what it is. That's ultimately the idea that we have some, and I've said this numerous times, I'm repeating myself, but I've said numerous times, we do not have an objective record of history. There's no such thing exists. And in fact, we can look at history as all of these researchers are doing and be like, wow, that's a lot of bullshit. So if we can say that, then how are we supposed to possibly build a timeline, or anyone build a timeline that extrapolates into the future and goes into the past thousands of years? You can't. And even if he does, and even when he does and makes claims about the zodiac, you can easily prove them incorrect. It's not even that difficult. Somebody had mentioned in the comment section, like, hey, Marty, thanks for doing all the hard work. Do you know how long it took me to put that video together? It took about 10 minutes worth of research. I'm not even exaggerating. I barely had to do anything. I was like, okay, let's look at what this author says. So let's look at some of the claims here he's making. In 4039 BC, the capture flood, Luna, the moon, was caught in the Earth orbit. Does Earth have an orbit? There's Earth in the orbit right now, and so therefore it's an. And what? How did the moon get caught in Earth's orbit? Was it the gravitational pull of it? Do we believe in gravity now? These are serious questions. I'm not even being like condescending or anything like that. I'm just like, those are serious problems. What you're going to see is he doesn't even have his cosmology consistent. 4639 BCE, the Earth captured in Sol orbit. So now it's a solar system. Is that what's going on here? We're going to see in 3439 BC is the first appearance of Nemesis X object. 1/3 of mankind killed in the catastrophe. Enki arrives at Sumer with the fleet. Okay, so now we're looking at the Enuma Elish and things like that, and not saying, well, that's mythology and stuff like that. It's pure history, and then we're going to use this to build into the timeline. Well, in order for us to do this, what we're going to have to do is have some sort of guidelines or protocols that we can go to flesh out and suss out exactly what's history, what's mythology, what's legend, and what's absolute bullshit, right? We don't have that. Nobody has that. Nobody has the ability to go through and actually figure out, well, was Christopher Columbus actually even real? Well, what we were told about him is nonsense. So the problem is what's our cosmology here? We're caught in the sun's orbit. Luna was caught in an Earth orbit. And was it back in the day, it was a solar system and then it became a flat plane? Once again, I'm not even being condescending. That's a serious question, because he's using these things to build his timeline in which every 138 or 600 years and then project into the future cataclysms. Once again, that's divination. I just want to mention, we'll go on. So capture the flood, and Earth doesn't have an orbit. It's, as far as we're understand as flat earthers, it's flat and stationary, exactly how we experience it. Earth captured in the Sol orbit, there's what? How about this? In 713 BC, and he's using these as like anchoring points to build his timeline to project into the future. How could you possibly know, I spelled possibly incorrectly, how could you possibly know or prove this? That in 713 BC, the sun retrogrades 10 degrees and the year is altered from 360 days to 365 days. So now is the sun in orbit around the earth, or is the earth in orbit around the sun? This alleged event is used to determine the proofs of the Phoenix timeline. How could you possibly substantiate that? How could you possibly prove that? Just because, by the way, just because something was written in a book thousands of years ago doesn't mean it's true at all. Okay? There's loads of books that are written today. Think about the millions of books that are out there today. Do you know how many of those books are completely full of shit? So if we found these books 2,000 years later or something like that, and like say, look, people believed in whatever, blah, and it's like, well, okay. So just because somebody wrote something down doesn't mean anything, really, okay? So how would you possibly prove that? And what cosmology are we in right now? Then he goes on to say this was once again in a response to, it looks like, as far as I could tell, it was in response into the 3-minute video that I made, in which I made no claims. I did no attacks. I didn't say anything. All I did was read from the books that he claims. If the sun didn't appear, this is his post, 16 hours ago, whatever it was. If the sun didn't appear in ancient Egypt until the end of the Pantheon, how would you know that? How would you, even if there's some claim written down somewhere, that doesn't mean it's true. But you automatically believe it, you put it into your timeline, and then you put it as one of your proofs. Same as the Utu Samash in the Near East, the solar orb first appearing in the Great Flood, inhibiting the Sun Age systems, then no solar zodiac was recognized before the flood. That's a problem. Complete conjecture, complete opinion, based on nothing. There's no way you could possibly prove that. Now, what we teach is exactly what Scripture teaches, and it's exactly what your experience is. And this is what I really want to harp on today. When people, the patterns that we see in the heaven have been the same since the very moment that God spoke light. The pattern, when we see Orion in the sky, that Orion, those patterns of Orion have been there as far as we can tell since the dawn, since God first said, "Let there be light," since the creation of this thing. When we look at the structure of Boötes, or we look at the Draco, as far as we know, and from our direct experience, those constellations have been the same in the sky as far as we can tell since the dawn of time. Now, can we prove that? No. But our experiences, and everyone's experiences, what? Go out in your sky. Have you ever seen those stars change? Yes, I know they move through the sky, but those Orion, like, Mintaka, what is it? Alnala, Mintaka, whatever, the 3 stars of Orion's belt, right? They just move slightly apart? No. As far as we know, the stars have been the same, and those patterns have been the same since the beginning. And this is exactly what Genesis tells us in the very first instance of the book. Okay, so we're supposed to listen to Archaix and say, well, according to literally nothing, that the sun appeared in the sky and wasn't there, or was there in Egypt before the flood, whatever it is, that would refute exactly what Genesis says. So we're going to take Archaix's opinion over Scripture. That's what we would do. Well, to me, that's a problem. And God said, "Let there be lights in the firmament of the heaven to divide the day from the night, and let them be for signs and for seasons and for days and for years, and let them be the lights in the firmament of the heaven to give light upon the earth." And of course, God made 2 great lights, the sun and the moon. That's clearly what it references. Now, our experience and Scripture tells us that the stars we see in the sky have been the same since God placed them there in the beginning. Now, once again, can we prove that? No, we can't prove that. But you know what we do have is actually the study of archaeoastronomy will actually give credence, and you could even say evidence or actual proofs to say that no, the pattern of the sun and the moon and the stars in the sky have been the same since the dawn of time. Now, we have actual, once again, when we look archaeoastronomically, right? And this is basically the notion that archaeological sites are connected to astronomy above, right? Obviously. And that they're actually encoding this sort of stuff. And they do this with, light patterns. You see this on the Great Pyramid of Giza. You see it in Teotihuacan. You see it in Chichen Itza. Every single one of these temples, pyramids, whatever it was, the sun still, whether it's winter solstice or summer solstice or whatever it is, still rises exactly, once again, in the temple. For an example, the temple at Karnak, the sun still rises however long that was built, however long it was ago it was. Now, we don't have proof, we have no idea, but that the sun still rises right in the center of the temple of Karnak right there, which tells us what? Whatever the pattern of that sun is, it's been around for a very, very long time. If you're going to refute that there's been a change, well then, once again, the burden is on you. And you have nothing. There's nothing. Chichen Itza, the shadows of light and darkness, the light and the shadows, that sort of stuff, forms a serpent. Everybody, I'm pretty sure, knows this. goes down, and I think this happens on the equinox, right? The, half day, half night, equal day and night, that sort of thing. Still works today. Have no idea how old it is, who the people were that built it. All of that history is completely gone because we don't actually have an objective record of history. But we do have archaeological sites that prove that when God put that sun and made the path in the sky, it was consistent. And it's been consistent for a very long time. Angkor Wat. How about Newgrange? Actually, once again, here's Qasar Quran. Once again, light comes right in. I think it's on the equinox. I want to say the phenomenon of the alignment of the sun. I don't know if it says there difference. It doesn't even say. Sorry, it doesn't say. But it's on the solstices and equinox. King's Ramses Temple. Once again, same sort of thing. They found in Keheren Tepe, Turkey. Once again, that this is a stone calendar, and as far as we can tell, still works, which means what? That would necessitate that when the sun and the moon were put in the sky, when God put them in the sky, they haven't changed. Now, this goes for loads of researchers. I've had friends of mine that I love dearly have talked about how the magnetic pole of the north shifted, and that shifted the sun over the ages, and then that created ice ages and stuff like that. There is no proof of that whatsoever. That is complete conjecture, complete theory. And archaeologically, archaeoastronomy actually tells us the exact opposite. Whoever built this, the sun has been the exact same year after year after year. Machu Picchu, Scotland, of course, right? How about this? Now, when I said, hey, the stars of Orion have been the same in the sky, well, this is the Anasazi star cities. Right, where basically you could even see that the Anasazi, they did an as above, so below. And so what do you have here? Of course, you have the stars in Orion being represented by their third mesa, first mesa, second mesa, their cities, even a Canyon de Shelley. It's the Pinion. What is that? It's the star in Orion's, his sword or whatever you want to call it. So as far as we can tell, star patterns have been the same, whoever created this. Let's watch this. This is Jim Vieira talking about how there's a bunch of mounds in New England, and you actually see this in Europe and stuff like that. And at least the ones he's visited, and specifically, he'll show you that I think it's the winter solstice sun still comes right up, right to the entrance. Okay, let's watch.
This about a mile from that tunnel in Goshen. Here's the Goshen Equinox Chamber. This is one of hundreds of these structures in New England. So it's very well made. It's at about 1,400 feet facing east. My friends and I went up there, not this winter, last winter, to see if it was oriented to the winter solstice. Half of the chambers of New England that still exist are oriented to the equinox sunrise or the winter solstice sunrise, like the chambers in Europe and elsewhere. So we went up. The sun was months away, and we said, let's go back next March 20th and see what happens. So this was my Raiders of the Lost Ark moment. I'm in the chamber, and my friends are outside. And as it comes up at 6 in the morning, right down the pipe. And it was funny. There's this strange face here. See the mouth and the eye? Almost looks like enlightenment. And they were open-minded, these archaeologists. They had a dowser up there who he found a spring underneath, and he found there was an electromagnetic line of force that ran right through the middle of this chamber. Whoever built this understood geomancy, magnetic lines of force, ley lines. They understood the invisible realms. And
so there you have it. Here's random in New England, and he's even talking about the ones in Europe and stuff like that we have no idea who built these, how old they are, and guess what they still do? Align to the sun. So that tells us that however long every single one of these archaeoastronomically aligned temples around the world still work. So if somebody is going to come along, any researcher, forget archaics, any researcher that says, well, no, back in the day the sun was 360 and now it's 365 or whatever it is, there is zero proof of this at all. None. And just because something was written down doesn't necessarily make it true. By the way, we say that about the Bible. We challenge the Bible. That's what we do here. In fact, I think that's why it's written, to say, hey, let's peer into this, challenge it. I did a documentary called Frank's Hill and the Ancient Mound Builders of Wisconsin, which I highly recommend you check out. And just about an hour and a half, I think maybe something like that, from my hometown, there's a bunch of old mounds. And what you can absolutely prove, and this is what Frank did, He actually got some people from the university to go and show that these mounds were calendars, and that they still today, and you can do this, they map this rising and setting of the sun in throughout the year. And there's even 12 mounds. So you start from this side, and on the left there's like a woman there, and there's like a serpent and that sort of stuff, right? And you look across from the mound that's right across, and there's 12 conical mounds, and they absolutely represent the rising of the sun and the setting of the sun in the year, and it still works today. You can also show that all of these other not all of them, but at least the ones I show in the video, or the one or two I show in the video, I want to say, are astronomically aligned, which means, as far as we can tell, when the sun was put in the sky, when the moon was put in the sky, when God placed them there, they've been the same since the dawn of time. At least as old as this stuff is. Now, if you're going to say, well, this was all created after this, well, now the burden of proof is on you to prove all of that. Good luck. Good luck. How about the serpent mound? Once again, still works. Whoever made this, we have no idea. How old is it? We have no idea. Could be hundreds of years old, could be thousands. But guess what it still does? It actually maps and tracks all sorts of things, actually. But this is just on the right there. You can see this is the full moon rise positions. Still works today. So if there was any deviation or derivation or whatever of the sun's path and went from 365 to 360 or whatever, well, then I guess you have to refute every single one of these. Here's what he says here. The Great Flood in 2239 BC. Now, remember, he's using these as the basis to create a calendar in which he's projecting cataclysms into the future. Now, the problem with this is that we have no proof at all, and there's nothing you can point to prove when a flood actually happened. Especially thousands of years ago. You're talking 4,000 years ago, allegedly, right? 2,000. So this is what Chabad.org says, right? The Jewish calendar. Noah's flood commenced on the 17th of Sheshvan, is that how you say that? And the year 1656 from creation, and ended on Sheshvan 27 of the following year. Well, if you just look up the 17th of Sheshvan, 1656, it's going to tell you that it happened in Wednesday, 9th of October, 2106 BCE, which, by the way, I don't know how you're going to possibly relate that to the Gregorian calendar. That's like, when was the Gregorian calendar created? 1500s or something like that, whatever. But beyond all of that, as far as we can tell, the Jews themselves don't even agree with Archaix. He's 133 years off, almost 138 years off, which would completely throw off his phoenix cycle. And it's just like this. Like, if you start out and you're on a path and you deviate from that path even 1 degree, well, when you get out this far, do you know how far off you're going to be? Well, that's exactly what's going on with this timeline. It's, pretty basic reasoning. So in order to, once again, say, oh, well, Archaix, what he's saying about this is true, well, then we have to negate what the Jews say themselves and the calendar that they've been upholding for however many generations. And we just have to ignore that and say, well, Archaix is right. And that date is absolutely confirmed. And it's not. There's nothing to confirm that whatsoever. And you know why I know that there's nothing to confirm that? Because there's no dates in the Bible. The Bible will put with like times like, and this month or that sort of thing. But they don't give you a year. You know why? Because it's a timeless document, as we say. How about the Agagian flood? Once again, as far as we could tell, maybe there was a flood. Maybe there wasn't. I don't know. There's no way to, rewind several thousand years of history and then absolutely prove it, let alone base an entire timeline on it. But here's what one of these, basically Greek, scholars had said that, but we must agree with the Greeks themselves that nothing is less certain than the date of this particular flood. And the flood he's talking about is the Agagian flood. And you can even see there, he has said it absolutely happened and would need to happen in order to substantiate and confirm his timeline in 1687 BC. The event was so little fixed in time and so little known that the Greeks called everything that was obscure and uncertain Agagian. Then it even goes on to show that Father Pitot of the Rationarium Temporum, whatever, that sort of stuff, that he has a different opinion, that the date of the flood was reckoned as 1529 BC, 3 years before the Jews escaped from Egypt, right? Okay, well, if it's 1529 BC, well, that's 100 and some years off as well, 160 years roughly off. Okay, well, once again, that's going to throw your entire timeline off. So who's correct? Well, of course, all the errants and all the people that are just love-bombing him, they're going to see, well, obviously Archaix is correct. Or actually what's going on is none of you ever challenged it. None of you. Now, the other problem is that, once again, we don't even have a consistent cosmology going on in his timeline. Is it a ball Earth, or is it flat? Or is it something else? I don't know. But clearly it's like, well, the sun was captured in an orbit and the Earth was captured in this orbit or whatever. It's like nothing's orbiting. The Earth isn't orbiting anything. Many of the books he references from are filled with heliocentric garbage. Now, there's nothing wrong with referencing from a book that might have some things wrong in it or cosmologically wrong. There's nothing wrong with that. It is a problem, though, if you're basing your cosmology and chronology on these books. Because what your cosmology is based, or what your timeline and chronology is based on, is cosmology. When things appeared in the sky, vapor canopies and things. That requires you to at least be consistent about your cosmology. And as you can see, he's not at all. This is the people that he references from. Horbinger, theory of cosmic ice. The space between the stars is not empty, but is filled with a thin ice. How would you possibly prove that? This ice offers a very minute obstacle to the movement of planets. Every movement is thus slowed down. There are at least half dozen small planets on concentric orbits between Earth and Mars. What? How would you prove that? Then he says, basically this cosmic ice crashed down, and this caused a world catastrophe. After millions of years, another planet was captured. He's speaking heliocentrically. And this is what he's basing his timeline on. Guys like this. And this, by the way, all of these are all were on his reference books, okay? I'm not making any of this up. I just went to his site and was like, who are you referencing? Thus, according to Horbinger, the moon, the one we see, would be the only last satellite captured by the Earth. So now, once again, there's an orbit of the Earth, and it's captured in the gravitational pull. All the history of the globe, the evolution of the species, and all history find their explanation in this succession of moons in our sky. Can you prove at all that there was anything other than the moon that we see in the sky today? No, you can't. Of the form of the world, that it has the form of a perfect globe, that we learn from the name which has been uniformly given it, as well as numerous natural arguments. It's continually turning round. So now the Earth... Now, I'm not saying Archaix is claiming this, but this is what he's basing this on. Once again, no problem whatsoever looking at books that might have a wrong cosmology, and they still might have some good information in them. But not if you're building a cosmological and chronological, theory that projects into the future. That's a huge issue. Here's the proceedings of the International Conference on Creationism. This is a bunch of literalist Christians. This is what this is. Hence why they're focusing on creationism. This was from 1990. It's the pre-flood vapor canopy radiative temperature profiles. Okay, cool. Number one, can you actually do like carbon dating or anything like that? I think that's all a bunch of nonsense, personally. But regardless of that, if you just look up in the upper left-hand corner, these literalist Christians are not even consistent with biblical cosmology. There's nothing in the Bible, as we all know. In fact, there's 200 verses, I think, that actually point to the fact that this is a flat stationary, cosmology. And these guys, what is that? This is a globe. They don't even know where they are. But we're going to use this as science to substantiate and prove out the theory of the vapor canopy. Here's another one, Moon Myths and Man, a reinterpretation by H.S. Bellamy. This guy is just, wow. I mean, this might as well be a fiction writer, okay? After the entire disintegration of the satellite, the girdle tide, freed from the gravitational bondage, surges off the north and south in a wild rung of the... What's our cosmology here? The birth of our solar system, somewhere in that part of space where we now see, contoured on the heavenly sphere by the stars of the constellation, the clump of the dove, there existed some 3,000 million years ago. How would you possibly prove that? Here's some of this, more of this trash. There's the moon getting caught in the Earth orbit and the tilt, and here's some more of this absolute trash. When some 13 to 15,000 years ago, the planet Luna at the aphelion and perihelion conjunction moved outside the Earth at a distance from 250,000 to 300,000 miles. Do you think the moon is that far? These are the books that he's sourcing. No, that's Sitchin, which, whatever. New Worlds and Cosmos with the discovery in 1995 of the planet orbiting the solar system, etc. I think you get the point. Cyclical deluges. This is an entire book basically talking about how there's cyclical deluges and things like that. And it's a geological phenomenon of the globe. And this is one of the things he's sourced. Page one. Ever since the introduction of the art of the printing, attempts have been made by Copernicus and other philosophers to impart to mankind a knowledge of the structure of the Earth. But it was not until a modern era, the times of Galileo and Newton, that the true nature of the planetary system and the consequential revolution of the Earth on its axis. You just had on a flat earther. What's going on here? How about this? Nemesis Object X. Nemesis X object appears, blots out the stars, meteoric rain, plague, fogs, large symbol is increased. I'm not even sure what he's saying there, but the Nemesis X is a completely hypothetical, completely theoretical thing that's brought to you, star or whatever, that's brought to you by heliocentrism. Nemesis is a hypothetical star that some scientists believe orbits the sun at a great distance. Some believe hypothetical. So now this thing exists. It's part of the Phoenix timeline. It's there to substantiate and confirm all the things that he said. Nobody, not a single person, can prove that this thing even exists. Yet this is part of his timeline. Okay. Let me just say, let's do this. Let's take a little break here, about an hour and a half in. So if you'd like to support the fine work that we do here at the Gnostic Church and Academy, we really appreciate it. Venmo, Buy Me a Coffee, Cash App, Subscribe Star. That's how we keep going, is with your support. As you guys know, if you'd like, Gnostic Academy, 7781 County Road, 3440, Mountain View, Missouri, 65548. And of course, you can donate via the website. And there's that baby there. And I actually got my mic working today, but I'm gonna not play any music just because there's a lot more that we want to cover, and I want to be pretty succinct about this. I don't want this to drag on for hours. By the way, I'm not going to be able to touch on the 1,000 videos that he has and the 12 books and things like that. But what we can do, because obviously that would take the rest of my life to do, if you will, right? But what we can do is, once again, show you that if he's got this wrong and this wrong and this wrong, and he's not even consistent about cosmology, what does he have right? Why is it that thousands upon thousands of people, and the people that supported and promoted his work, why have you not done this? This is my question. Because this is what truth-seeking is all about. We can't call ourselves independent researchers if we don't actually do the research. We can't call ourselves truth seekers if we just listen to what somebody says, and while it really resonates with me, that sounds good to me, he seems like he knows what he's talking about, let's go with that. That's not what truth-seeking is about. Okay? So there's that. So we're going to watch a bunch of these videos, and like I said, I'm going to try to be fairly concise and succinct with this, right? But so this was the video that he specifically mentioned that I had not watched and that I need to watch, and what it does is absolutely proves the Phoenix timeline. And so this is a 4-hour video. I grabbed maybe 11, 12 clips in here, and we're going to, with a fine-tooth comb, with a scalpel, if you will, go in and absolutely show that Archaix, no offense, brother, but doesn't have a damn clue what he's talking about. Okay? So, let's first start with, this is the first clip.
It is amazing how much has been arbitrarily just invented. Yeah. It was all by design. Totally to get us to believe in an absolutely false paradigm, a false heavens, a false religion, a whole false idea of who we are and where we're going. Everything is specifically intended. It's in the tarot. It's in the zodiac. It's in the Old Testament. It's in the New Testament. Every bit of this is layers of deception, absolutely designed to keep you from understanding who you are. It is amazing.
So you just heard him directly. This is the part of the intro of that video, the Cultus Mysterium, that sort of thing, which you can watch. He's specifically saying there, and he even mentioned it before, astrology is a Jewish invention, alchemy is a Jewish invention. Every single one of these things, tarot, the zodiac, Old Testament, New Testament, all of it's there is to deceive you. But I have the answer for you, ladies and gentlemen. Archaix has the answer. All of this stuff is deception, but come to me and I'll show you the truth. Do you know what I say? I say, and I've said this numerous times over the years, it's that don't trust me, don't believe me, challenge what I'm saying, and not only that, none of what I'm presenting is quote-unquote original. Then I even go to show you when we talk about the septenary cipher. The Rosicrucians do it. I just read right from it. In fact, I've called myself one of the most unoriginal people on the internet, and that is not like hyperbolic or, just being funny or not. It's like, no, I'm just a student of the mysteries, and I'm showing you everything I've learned. Yes, I've made some personal discoveries and that sort of stuff. Fine. But none of this is unique. None of this is like, oh, you have to come through me. This is exactly what he's saying. Guys, Zodiac. alchemy, Old Testament and New. All of it is there to deceive you, but come to me because I've got the Phoenix timeline and I'll show you the truth. That's called narcissism. That's called, and the people that follow that without questioning is called idol worship.
All right. So we're going to begin this presentation. This right here is just one of many slides. I'm just giving you an overview right here of the type of art that was going on in the 1400s, 1500s, 1600s, 1700s, in the early 1800s when it died out. Now, this is the old alchemical treatises. These are the cover pages on many old alchemical books on mysticism, the occult, the Kabbalah, all kinds of things. What I find very interesting is throughout all these presentations, you're not going to find any evidence whatsoever of the heritage of the individuals who were doing it. Some of these authors were supposed to be Italian. Some of them were German. Some of them were Prussian. Some of them were Portuguese. Some of them were French. Some of them were English, Scots, Irish, the Celts. But we don't have this. We don't have any evidence of this. What we have is a bunch of Latin, and hidden in different places, you're going to see a lot of, it's just all Jewish material.
So you're going to see basically what he does in this whole video for 4 hours is shows alchemical illustration after illustration after illustration. And then he's saying specifically, as you heard him say, well, there's no reference to the heritage of the people that made these things. Well, that's because you never actually looked at any of the books from which you got these illustrations from. Because do you know what you'll find? Is that some of them were written in German. In fact, a lot of these alchemists come from Europe. They're German. And I'll show you that today. Not only that, many of these people were extremely intelligent. They were polymaths. They were multilingual, bilingual, right? And so Latin was obviously one of the most, prominent languages of the day, and hence why they wrote in that. You'll actually see, and you can go and look through these, that there's actually not that many references to anything Judaic. There might be some Hebrew letters here and there. Yes, you'll see the Tetragrammaton, which we'll cover today, but you'll find that in Christian art and alchemical art. That doesn't mean that it's a Jewish trick, okay? Nothing of the sort. So what you're going to see in this, and please watch it, I encourage you to watch it. It's a 4-hour Occultus Mysterium. In the entire thing, he never actually goes and sources the book from which he's getting the alchemical illustration from. Then he's going to tell you what his opinion of is. Okay, well, what happens if your opinion directly contradicts exactly what the people said that were drawing it and then writing about it? Well, his opinion is, and of course everybody that just wants to love bomb him says, they were all lying. They were trying to deceive you. Most of these guys, by the way, when you look, Athanasius Kircher, Robert Flood, Michael Mayer, like these guys right here. Robert Flood, Michael Mayer, Jacob Bohm, Athanasius Kircher. These guys were Christian mystics. They were Christians. They weren't Jews. Okay? So to make the assertion that, oh, you don't find any of the heritage, well, of course you're not going to find it. You're not looking, dude. Neither is any of the people that are watching you or following you. Let's watch this.
We have more evidence of this idea 400, 500, 300, 400, and 500 years ago. Again, we have the Tetragrammaton. Again, we have the God that jumped out of a burning bush right here. This is him, Yahweh. Right here, Yahweh is a false god. Yahweh's arm comes out. He's holding a chain. This chain is around her right wrist. She is, you could call her Mother Nature in this picture. Her right breast is the sun. Her left breast is the moon. And another moon sign, maybe a Venus symbol or something for her pubic area. I don't know. But this is a chain. There's nothing good about a chain, guys. Nothing good about a chain. That's a chain bound to her right wrist. Her left hand is holding a chain that is bound to this little man here, who represents basically man in an animal form, who lives on this construct.
Okay, so you just heard it right there. So first off, he called Yahweh a demon. So for all you people like, why don't you talk with him and why don't you debate? He promotes divination. He projects into the future cataclysms of which he thinks he has a timeline for. And then he calls the great Lord God, of which, by the way, isn't just Jewish. We just actually covered this the other week. You actually find this notion in cultures around the world, but you also see in the New Testament that they revere Jehovah. He calls the Lord God a demon. So all of you people are like, well, why don't you go hang out with him? Why don't you go talk with him? Because I have no interest in talking with somebody who is being antichrist. He's telling you Christianity is you heard it. It's a trick. And he's got the answer. So let's pick this apart, okay? First and foremost, there's a hand that's reaching, and you'll see this in a lot of illustrations. Don't trust me. You'll see a hand that comes from the cloud, and in the cloud, or it might be a rays of light, or a triangle, or whatever. All-seeing eye of God, sometimes that sort of thing. But you find the tetragrammaton. You find this hand that comes out. Well, to those of you that follow this church, we know that the hand is a centerpiece of the mysteries. The kingdom of heaven is at hand, and in fact, the video I did right before and you please go and check it out. The video I did right before I did the 3 minutes debunking archaics was a video basically showing the math of the hands and how important they are, how they present a perfect number, how there's the triangulation of it, how it forms the number line. I did this in 5 minutes. He has no idea. That's why that they're showing a hand, because guess what? Hey, there's mathematics to this hand. We can find that when the egg in a woman's uterus, it drops in the 14th day, and the periodicity of that is 28 days. That's all on your hands. He doesn't have a clue. And then he called the Lord God a demon. This is known, all chains are bad. There's nothing good about a chain. That's quote. Okay, now he's showing you a picture that was illustrated by this guy right here, Robert Flood. Now, once again, notice and watch this, 4 hours, he goes illustration after illustration, and not once does he actually go to the original material from which it was found in and read from it, ever. He just gives you his interpretation. That's it. And then says absolutely ridiculous shit like that. What that chain is known as the Great Chain of Being. To be honest, my wife was laughing as she was watching it, because this is recognized. I mean, this stuff, some of the stuff just comes right from Wikipedia. Don't trust Wikipedia. Look elsewhere. You'll find the same sort of thing. This is called the Great Chain of Being. It's a hierarchical structure of all matter and life, thought by medieval Christianity to have been decreed by God, and that's who's on top. The chain begins with God and descends through the angels, humans, animals, and plants, and to minerals. The Great Chain of Being, Scala Natura, ladder of being, is a ladder of being, that's going to come in handy, is a concept derived from Plato, Aristotle, Plotinus, Proclus, further developed during the Middle Ages, Neoplatonism. The chain of being hierarchy has God at the top, above angels, which like him are entirely spiritual, without material bodies, and hence unchangeable. They go down to the mat, etc. Okay? Once again, here's, oh God, I should try to find this. I've got an illustration here. I don't want to look for it. I should have just grabbed it. But it's literally a phoenix on a chain. It's hilarious. I'm sorry. It's just, it's ridiculous is what it is. It's absurd. It's terrible research. I'm not going to look for it, but chain of being, there's God at the very top, and there's a chain that goes all the way down to the different levels of spiritual, physical, material, a mineral, vegetable. Here it is again, great chain of being. This is recognized. You can even see this, goes all the way to the top there. Robert Flood specifically wrote about this. He's looking at a Robert Flood painting or illustration, not referencing Robert Flood at all, and then Robert Flood says specifically what it's about, and then his conclusion would be, that's all a lie. That's all just to trick you. It's a Jewish trick. Do you know that Robert Flood was a physician, and do you know one of the main ways that he healed people? With the holy and great name of Lord Jesus Christ. Look it up. Robert Flood's The Great Chain of Being is a depiction of the relationship between the human and the universe, and the human being held up by a chain of being from God's hand. Flood was an alchemist who believed that humans contain essences of all parts of the universe, and that's exactly what we started with. This is the anthropocosm, the microcosm, and the macrocosm. This is the anthropocosm, the zodiac man. That's exactly. This is right from Robert Flood, okay, which once again he never does. The next portion of the work is De Anatoma Mystica in Libros Quinta, etc., whatever. A preface precedes this part in which all the great occultness, in which the occult greatness of man and the causes of his exaltation and depression are referred to it. It commences with a sentence from Pico di Mirandola, I think is how you say that, Mirandola, in which the greatness of man is extolled, the soul being heaven, the body earth, and the spirit the chain which binds both together. So Robert Flood is saying the spirit is a chain, and it chains you to God. It links you to God. He's looking at a Robert Flood painting and saying, there's nothing good about a chain. Guys, there's nothing good about a chain. By the way, this being at the very bottom, let's just go back here. What he's actually showing is that the human being, and that's what that is. He's saying that's an angel and that sort of stuff. No, actually, that's a human being, and the human being is tied to the spiritual, which is God above, and the tetragrammaton, and the material down below. Now, notice her right hand is linked up to God, and the left hand is brought to the materiality below. This is that you are part of the great chain of being, and that your spirit is the thing that's actually, part of the length of the chain, if you will. Okay? So this is the book from this is one of the main books, and you can even see it's the same figure there. And of course, this is all about cartography and military weaponry and that sort of stuff. And it's about music and geometry and sort of stuff, all that sort of stuff. And that's what the whole book is about, right? He never read from any of the book. He's probably never even read the book. I mean, or any Robert Flood, as far as I can tell, because if he had, he would never say something so ridiculous. By the way, religion, so he's saying the chain is never good. Religion literally means to bind, to chain, or to link. That's what it is. It's a bond between humans and God. Religare means to bind fast. It's literally a link, a chain, a union, a yoke, if you will. Okay? And this is the etymology. It's the state of life bound by monastic vows. That means that your life, I am chained to God. Everything I do is for His glory. Then he says the tetragrammaton is the demon that jumped out of a burning bush. That's what he said. Okay, except the problem with that is that this demon, if you will, is exalted in Christianity, right? And we've actually once again showed this. We went to, cathedrals and churches and things like that in Europe, and do you know what we found? The tetragrammaton. So either Archaix is right and all of that is a Jewish trick, or he has no idea what he's talking about. So the burning bush, by the way, the demon that jumped out of the burning bush, this is a reference, this might be new for some people, but this is a reference to everything that we've talked about for the last 3 years right now. That all of this is zodiacal. So, number one, Moses saw God, and he saw him in a burning bush. Do you know what the burning bush is? That's the arbor vitae. It's the tree of life. It's your cerebellum here, right? It's your, or is that what it's called? Excuse me. Anyway, this is called your arbor. That's literally the anatomical name of it. Arbor vitae literally means tree of life. Right above, you can even see the tree of life, part of it goes right to what? The pineal gland in the center of your head. Do you know what Aries is? It's a fire sign. That's what it is. So when the Bible, once again, what I'm saying is that he said there's no mention of the zodiac in the Bible. You can't even read the Bible properly without knowledge of those 12 signs. So what is the fire of the burning bush that Moses saw? He saw it in here. That's the bush. This is the fire. And this is where he met God. Right here. Not external, not into some demon that jumped out of a burning bush. This is, and the angel of the Lord appeared unto him in a flame of fire out of the midst of a bush. Does that not look like a bush to you? Like a tree? Looks actually more like a bush than it does a tree, actually. And he looked, and behold, the bush burned with fire. Do you know what's right by that? It's your hippocampus, which is the horns of Aries. And the bush was not consumed. It was a fire. It was an eternal fire. Why? Because God is within you, eternal. This is God, the eternal God within the human being, right in the center of the head, if you will. And there's the bush. It's burning. And do you know what this is? This is your canal that goes. It's the forum magnus. I think is magnus. I think is what it is. It's the opening of the skull. And what does this lead right down to? Your spinal column. And what goes up and down the spinal column? your chrism, your balm, your oil. This is what they mention. This is what this is all about. He has no idea. In the 3rd chapter of Exodus, the angel of the Lord appeared unto Moses in the form of a bush burned with fire. And the zodiac man, the head is associated with Aries, a fire sign. As the cerebrospinal fluid returns to the head from the spinal cord, it passes the arbor vitae, or the tree of life, an anatomical feature that looks strikingly like a bush or a tree, hence its name. Right above the arbor vitae sits the pineal gland, or third eye. Long associated with enlightenment and numerous traditions, it is here, inside his own temple, where Moses had his revelatory experience with God. This reference to seeing God within, and the pineal gland, is found in the same book in verse 32, chapter 30. And Jacob called the name of the place Peniel, for I have seen God face to face. By the way, when we understand that the zodiac is hella old, and that the sun is exalted or rises in Aries in the year, this makes sense of every single shepherd god you see in comparative mythology all over the world. Every time you see a shepherd god, what do you think it's referencing? How about this? Apollo, Orpheus, Pan, Paris, Endymion, Christ, Osiris. All of these are referred to as Lamb of God, shepherd God, so some variation or derivation thereof. Where does this spring from? It springs from the very thing that he says is a false doctrine. It stems from this, which, as far as we can tell, is old as dirt.
Mankind is trapped inside a construct, chained to a protocol, a goddess entity that is presently running the construct against her will. She, in turn, is enslaved by the Tetragrammaton. These 4 Hebrew letters, Yahweh, the demon that jumped out of a burning bush. Mankind is currently under the sway of a Jewish paradigm. So, let's move on.
And how did he come to that conclusion? And what is that based on? Nothing. He didn't read from this. He didn't source the material. He didn't read from it. He didn't say, well, this is what the author had to say, and this is why I'm going to show these incorrect. I have said before, and I told this to loads of people, that Archaix doesn't do good research at all. It's like, well, no, he obviously does. No, he doesn't, because once again, if he was going to do good research, he would at least read from what the people that made these things themselves said, and then refute it point by point. You would do a critical analysis of being like, well, these are all Christian mystics. That, by the way, Robert Flood was a geocentrist. Athanasius Kircher, geocentrist. Do you know that Robert Flood, the guy who made that painting, had an open argument with Kepler? Here's the painting. So he's saying that this woman at the top there is now controlling the construct. And it's all Jewish because of the Tetragrammaton at the top. From a guy that was on the court of King James, that wrote extensively about Christ, about that sort of stuff, and we're just going to ignore all that and go with the opinion of Archaix. Flood ends the 2nd tractate with theosophical and Kabbalistic studies. He asks the reader to see in the Hebrew characters the fiery symbols of the sacred Trinity. That's exactly what the Old Testament and New Testament does. Old Testament has what? So any reference to anything, it's like an Adam Green situation. It's just dog shit, I'm sorry. But any reference to anything Old Testament is Jew, and then it comes from the Jews and blah, 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 blah. Right? Well, actually, why is there a New Testament? Because the Old Testament was incomplete. And so a New Testament had to come along and be like, and you know what Jesus did? He called out the Jews all day long. He was literally like, yeah, as soon as you reject your Messiah, right, what happens? You become Antichrist. Well, guess what? That's what Archaix is. He's an Antichrist. He literally told you. He said it. That's a demon. It's all false paradigms, all false whatever. The universal and the tree of life illustrates his previous treatments of the hierarchical structures of the different realms, and once again, the divine light is an essential theme in the invisible word of God. It's a reference to Christ. The universal and mystical word, the light uncreated, is exhibited in universal nature by the watery mem and the igneous shin. So we are to venerate Jehovah as revealed in the light of the sun, moon, and the stars. In them, by existing and existing beyond all and in all, his power is seen in both the macrocosm and the microcosm, even in the fire of Gehenna. You will find the glory of God above, below, even at the very bottom in hell. And guess what it says in the Bible? Christ will be with you even there. God is exalted in all realms. He's saying it's a demon. Demon jumps from a burning bush. He doesn't have any idea what any of it means. And then he's asserting that Robert Flood is trying to present to you Jewish ideas. He was a Christian. There's the book of Flood once again. Just so you know that this is a reference specifically to man being tied to the spiritual realms and the material realms, being the monkey, if you will, the animal, animate being, and of course the spiritual on top. There's the Trinity, there's the light, that's a representation of Jehovah, that sort of stuff. There's man, homo, in the middle, and he's tied what? Above and below, spirit and matter. So the same thing he's showing in this graphic is the same thing he's showing in the other, and once again, Archaix doesn't have a clue. So just so you know that this is not some Jewish, whatever, like here's him exalting, once again, this is Hebrew Kabbalah on the left there, right? But he's actually explaining it through the Christian doctrine. That's what he's doing. And once again, you can see man is standing on the earth on the right, and his head is in the clouds, which is his Aries, and that's him being strapped between the material and the spiritual, the spirit and the matter, the metaphysical and the physical. And you can even see it's separated by, on the right there, you can even see the guy is separated by pi, and the upper half is what? The spiritual, and the lower half is the material, and there's a flat, stationary right horizon, if you will, in the background. So once again, this is the problem, is that he's making theories, projecting onto the future, telling thousands upon thousands of people things, and he's not ever referencing what they say themselves. This is disingenuous. It's just terrible research. That's all. No offense.
Again, this is what I find so fascinating about this tetragrammaton at the top, the sun below that. I already showed you this picture, but this is an older picture of it. This is the guy sleeping, showing this is humanity sleeping while they're inside the construct. They're not awake. You are not awake while you are in here. This is the construct and all the phenomena. Here's the interesting thing about this treatise right here. On the bottom, here's the date. You just can't make this stuff up, guys. On the bottom. Can I blow it up for you guys to see? There it is. On the bottom. The Great Meteorological Chart from Cosmic Meteorology, published in 1626. Archaix veterans, you guys know that year. I don't even have to say what happened that year. 1626, published by Robert Flood, right there. And his name was Flood. Get that. 1626 was definitely a year that my Archaix veterans know. That's when this was published.
So, he's not really saying anything. It's just like, my Archaix veterans know that everything I've said about this year 1626 or whatever is true. And I guess, once again, it's probably because they never actually deciphered or, deconstructed anything he has to say. But once again, this is Robert Flood. And this is, as he said, there's nothing in this at all that says anything about a phoenix cycle or that has anything to do with about a timeline or anything like this. This is specifically one out of many of the illustrations of Flood that are talking about meteorology, how the winds are formed, lightning, where the sun stuff comes, all that sort of stuff comes from. You go on the top, and of course you have the Tetragrammaton, which is once again exalted in Christianity as well. Now, for those of you guys who are like, well, the Tetragrammaton is just Jewish and all this other stuff, well, this is why I have a video, and I just posted this. It's a 7-minute video, and I highly recommend that you watch, and it's the Geometry of Jehovah, which goes to show that the gematria encodings of that great and holy name of Jehovah, God Almighty, actually forms the specific triangle that you find on the back of the dollar bill that specifically shows you the path of the sun. So while Robert Flood is saying that's what Jehovah is, we just read it. Now we can actually show the specific geometry, and the geometry I'm showing, go ahead, try to refute it. It's the most basic geometry you could do. And what you're going to see is that the Jehovah is actually it's a key, it's a code, if you will. And it tells you about specific science of our realm. And do you know what it tells you about? You know that we were talking about that path of the sun that never changes as far as we know. Since God put it in the sky, it's been the same. That's what it encodes. Don't trust me. Challenge it. And then do the math yourself and find out that what I'm saying is accurate. That's what we're supposed to be doing here. That's what we're, as truth seekers, as genuine researchers, as the people that want to get closer to God and therefore closer to the truth. That's what is necessary. It necessitates this. Nobody over there is doing that. Let's read this. Let's watch this.
So we move on. Here's a better picture of that one I showed you earlier, where the guy's working on something, but in his mind, reality, the whole stellosphere is a construct. It's mechanical. So we move on. Here's another piece that basically shows us it's from the year 1515. Again, we have this idea 500 years ago that our reality was mechanical. It was a type of construction. So they tried to piece it together the best they could and tried to fit the sun and the moon in the best they could. They threw in the zodiac right here, which 500 years ago they wouldn't have known that the zodiac was only at that time 15 centuries old. So this is what we have right here. It's just just more artwork to show you the idea. Here it is again. It's a little bit more complex here. This is the year 1559. Here it is. We see Earth is in the middle of this construction. They've added more to the construct. As time progresses, they add more details. The imagination goes a little bit wild. It's more wild. So here's more details showing the Earth in the middle. There's the continents. There's the atmosphere. There's the firmament. And then outside, you got the belt of the zodiac. And it shows obliquity. And you have these layers of the heavens that look like water all the way around. It's very interesting, guys. This is Atlas right here. Atlas holding up the world. It was all very mechanical to them. It wasn't natural.
So what he's saying is that basically back in the 1500s there, this was it's like, oh, this was all mechanical and stuff like that. And that's what they're showing. And they're trying to piece this together and that sort of thing. No, not even close. He's claiming this all mechanical. And that's how they're viewing. This is known as the celestial sphere. It's also known as the armillary sphere. This has been known across the world for a very, very long time. All of those alchemical illustrators, all they're doing is showing the same thing that you can find literally around the world. And it's this, once again, when God placed all that stuff in the sky, apparently from all of these different globes and things like that, which is a celestial sphere, it's not a globe of Earth, they're showing essentially the exact same thing. Now he's saying that they're all just putting this together and it's all mechanical. No, not even close, dude. Not even close. Here's the armillary sphere. You can see this. This is, once again, if we grant that these dates are even accurate, which, once again, I have to put a big question mark on. But, of course, he's, making his timeline to saying, yes, we can confirm these dates. Here's the mythological figures within the armillary sphere in a fragmented fresco, mid-1st century A.D. Armillary sphere in the painting by Sandro Botticelli, 1480. Of course, in Islamic astronomy, there's 1480, once again. So this is one of the illustrations that he showed there was from Athanasius Kircher. That's this guy right here. And this is the book called The Theater of the World. You know what a theater is? It's drama. It's joy and crying. It's ebbs and flows, all this sort of stuff. That's what a theater is. You go to theater to see drama, right? Just as it says, all the world's a stage and men and women merely players, that sort of stuff. Has his entrances and exits and 7 ages, that sort of stuff, right? Well, so he's saying they all thought it was mechanical. Well, here's Athanasius Kircher, and this is a direct quote. I found such a theater of nature displaying herself in such a wonderful variety of things as I had with so many desires wished for. Whatever thing occurs in the whole body of the earth that is wonderful, rare, unusual, and worthy of admiration, I found contracted here. Does this sound like Athanasius Kircher believes in a mechanical construct? So not only does he not recognize that is the celestial sphere, which has been known for ages as far as we know. In fact, look it up. You have pictures of Ptolemy looking at this sort of thing, right? Not only that, he's claiming that it's all mechanical and they were just trying to piece some things together because there's been a timeline shift. And then he goes on to say they would have had no idea that 1,500 years ago that the zodiac was just placed on humanity and crafted and stuff like that. Well, we already debunked that. So I guess point after point after point after point, we can see that not only can his assertions be directly challenged, but some of them can just be proven directly wrong. Once again, he doesn't even have his cosmology consistent. Anybody that here's more. Celestial globe. Their atlas, of course, the atlas, when he says that's atlas, well, why? Because once again, it's a reference to your spinal column. Just as we said that spinal column goes right up to the burning bush, which is Aries, which is the fire, this is your atlas and axis bone. Why? Why did they have the world on top of your shoulders right here? What is that a reference to? Microcosm and macrocosm. We carry the world on ourselves, in our body. As Hermes Mercurius Trismegistus called it, the frame divine being. That's what it is. That's why it's called an atlas. Of course, you find this in New York and things like that as well. So once again, he's using, all of this is predicated upon the fact that something we've already debunked. Well, the zodiac is only this many years old. That's not true at all. And in fact, the oldest literature that we have references to it. By the way, anybody that that leaves a comment on this video and things like that says, once again, I think I mentioned this, but accuses or, makes some slander at me personally or anything like that, it will just be deleted and you'll be banned. We don't care. If you have something to say about, oh, Marty, you got this incorrect, or there might be some things here and there, okay, we'll let that fly. But until Archaix has to answer for all of these things, I have no interest in what people's opinions are at all.
Here it is again. This is going back 50 years back in the past again. This is 1547 right here. But they have a general idea that of the mechanics of the stellosphere. And to them, it was like a clockwork. Here it is again. But this, they've thrown the goddess in there, showing that the goddess, and look at her. She doesn't look like, first of all, she has no crown. She's also naked. Something's happened. The goddess, and you're going to see this a lot in these in this video. I'm going to blow your mind on stuff on this, especially a lot of you that have followed my goddess presentations. You're going to see here, man, listen, these alchemical treatises tell the story. They give us the business. Look, something's happened. The goddess has lost her raiment. She's lost her crown. She's not sitting on a throne. She doesn't look very happy. She's just maintaining the construct. Now, that's the world in the middle. You see how the sun and all the phenomena work. This is in the mind. This is in a book this is a woodcut from Urania, a text called Urania. It's a Nuremberg, 1503.
So he's like, well, that woman doesn't have a crown and she's not on a throne and she doesn't have her raiment and things like that. Maybe because it's not a goddess. Did you ever think about that? Once again, maybe she is, maybe she's not. But do you know what he did not do? Go to the book and actually reference anything that the author or the illustrator said about it whatsoever. He's just riffing. He's just shooting, into the dark here, being like, this is what this is. Do you know what that actually references? Everything that we just talked about. That you are a representation of the whole thing. This is the axis mundi. This is the zodiac man. This is the anthropocosm. That's what it's referencing. That's why she has her arms around the whole world. This is not some Jewish conspiracy in which the woman now is controlling the construct. Where are you getting that? Well, you're getting it from a bunch of absolutely terrible research. That's how you're coming to this conclusion.
But you're not going to get the full effect of this video because you don't have the background information. You have not seen the arithmetic. You have not seen the source materials. You've not seen how all these things fit together, about how new the zodiac, how new the tarot is, how ancient the vapor canopy system is, how the scientific world has covered all this up, how with perfect regularity every 138 years the Phoenix phenomenon has occurred, and that we found enough evidence to put this whole timeline together, and yet still 99.9% of the data about the Phoenix phenomenon has been deliberately scrubbed from all our books, all our writings, our traditions, even the internet. And yet still, I have been able to put together so much information that I have a huge following that all follows my published books and my presentations on this 138-year reset protocol. It is amazing. But unless you have this background of information, this video is not going to take on the full effect for you.
That is just a string of some of the most, I mean, and I'm not like, trying to like throw stones at him or anything like that. I'm just assessing what he's saying. That's all. So I'm not like name calling here or anything like that, but that is the most arrogant, self-righteous, narcissistic position you could possibly take. All of this stuff has been scrubbed. All of these illustrations are trying to show you what I'm going to show you, the Phoenix phenomenon. Everything that they have to say, the authors themselves about those illustrations, that's a conspiracy, that's wrong. But listen to what I have to say, because out of all these things that have scrubbed, I've uncovered it. That's narcissism. That's what it is. And then he's saying, I've got all these people following me because of this. You have all these people following you because there's lots of people that don't actually challenge anything you're presenting.
So there's a lot to unpack in this deal. We're looking at, this is ancient Egyptian Book of the Dead. You're looking at the ladder of Set. Now, in the Bible, it's been hijacked. It's been called Jacob's ladder. The ladder of Set was also the ladder of Typhon. You guys know Typhon is also the same word as the phoenix. Typhon is the fiend. So it's which in Egyptian was Noph. So we have the feast. This is a representation of mankind's ability to ascend out of this construct and into another one. Now, I'm going to tell you now, you see the sun and you see the moon right here. That's not the sun and that's not the moon. And it's going to be very clear to you that these are symbols that cover up something else. I'm going to let you know. This is a Jewish priest, not just any man. This is a Jewish priest, and his ability to ascend, to acquire either knowledge or power from whatever the sun represents here and whatever the moon represents here.
Okay, so the sun and the moon are not the sun and the moon. That's not what it's referencing. Now, it isn't to say that the sun and the moon aren't symbolic of lots of things. They are. I mean, that's God works in symbols. But he's saying that's not, the sun and the moon are not that. Then he's going to say that guy's a Jewish man. That's what he said. He specifically said that guy's Jewish. And then not only that is the ladder of Set. And that has been ripped off in the Bible as the ladder of Jacob's ladder. But that's the ladder of Set. So these are the basic three claims that he makes on this one illustration. Well, let's just knock them down one after another. Number one, it's the ladder that's known in Egypt, Book of the Dead, pyramid text, that sort of stuff is called the Mechat, I think is how you say that. And it's a worldwide symbol. The ladder is just just like the triangle or like loads of things, right? It is a symbol that's known cross-culturally around the world. It's not like, these alchemists or Jews or whatever, they just ripped it off from Egypt and it's the ladder of Set, okay? Just so you know, it's a ladder that's a ladder to the heavens. The concept of the ladder is more strong. In Egyptian mythology, a ladder of Set wouldn't be directly referenced, though there's references to this. I'll show you. The concept of a ladder is more strongly associated with the god Osiris, and it is, whose ladder was used to ascend to the heavens. They specifically tell you this. Often depicted as the goddess Nut, symbolizing the sky. This ladder is the Mechat. I guess I spelled that incorrectly. I apologize. In Egyptian texts, and is often placed in tombs to assist the deceased in their afterlife to the throne in the heavens, to eternal life. Osiris's ladder, it's a symbol of ascension, that sort of stuff. So he's saying that's the ladder of Set. That's what it is. He specifically said that. Well, once again, just double check what he's saying. Go to the pyramid text, go to the Book of the Egyptian Dead, download a PDF, there's a search. Just go ladder and see what comes up. A ladder has been tied together by the sun in front of Osiris. A ladder has been tied together by Horus in the front of his father Osiris. All these characters have ladders because the ladder is just a symbol for ascension. Of course, the gift for the Eunice, the ladder is called the salve of contentment of Osiris's back. The ladder of his back. What do you think they're talking about here? Osiris's backbone. It's a spinal column. It's a spinal column. That's what it's a reference to. When the Pepi goes up, Horus of the Duat will go up to the sky on a ladder. And Pepe goes, the horns of Shesmet will go up in the sky in the ladder. Greetings, God's ladder. Greetings, Seth's ladder. So there's ladder of Seth, but it's also a ladder of Osiris and Nut and God himself. Seth's ladder. Stand up, God's ladder. Stand up, Seth's ladder. Stand up, Horus's ladder, made for Osiris. So he's making a conspiracy. That's Seth's ladder. The Jews took it, and that guy in the background there, he's not going up to actual heavens where the sun and the moon are that all of us experience. That means something else, and he's going to tell you. Of course, he doesn't really actually explain any of that sort of stuff, but I have flown up as a falcon, I have cackled as a goose, I am given a place to alight on the district of the lake, I stand on it, I sit on it, I have risen as a god, etc., etc. And this is, of course, I raise a ladder to the sky among the gods, for I am one of them. Set is the antithesis of Horus. He's to bring the sun down. Okay? A sacred symbol of Nut was the ladder used by Osiris. So his claim that, it's Set's ladder, that's what that is. 2 minutes worth of research can debunk that. Here is the ladder symbolism, once again, known across the world. You find it in Freemasonry. You find it, of course, this is Jacob's ladder. He is correct about that. It is Jacob's ladder, right? And you're saying they just stole it from whatever, the Egyptians. No, it's a, as far as we can tell, it's a universal symbol, just like the monad, just like the triangle, just like two pillars, if you will, that sort of stuff, just like the sun and the moon. This comes from the Encyclopedia of Freemasonry. This ladder, so remarkable in the history of the Jewish people, finds its analog in all the ancient initiations. Whether this be attributed simply to a coincidence, a theory which few scholars would be willing to accept, or to the fact that these analogs were all derived from a common fountain of symbolism, exactly what we're saying. It is, however, certain that the ladder as a symbol of moral and intellectual progress exalted almost universally in antiquity. Almost universally in antiquity, and he doesn't have any idea. Then he attributes it to specifically a ladder of Set, and then says that that guy that's climbing it is a Jew. Pay attention. The number of steps varied, etc., but of course, this was the ascent of the ladder of perfection. So this is where he's getting this picture is from this. This is, his name is Jan David, I think is what it is. And this book is by the way, this book is specifically a book about Christian ethics. That's what it is. Not Jewish ethics, about Christian ethics. Remember, there's that whole separation of the Jews and the Christians and how they haven't got along and for years and stuff like that. Well, he's throwing all that out and saying that's a Jewish guy that's climbing that ladder. Of course, he didn't reference the book at all, right? Well, you can go to the very page that shows the picture in the very back, and what are you going to find? They even label it A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H. Okay, so then you can go and you can transcribe or you can translate what those things in Latin say, and you know what they're going to tell you? Well, okay, so ABC is the inevitability through the living contemplation. Stairway to the secret heaven created to be searched. In other words, there's a ladder that you have to ascend, and it was created so that you would seek it out. The E is the Saint Bernard among the trees contemplating the fields. F, so he's saying, you can even see up in the upper left-hand corner there, he's climbing the ladder, that's F. And he's saying, see that guy right there? That's a Jewish guy. No, it's not. From the text itself, it tells you exactly who it is. It's John. You remember when we started this whole thing and he didn't know the tetragrammaton, or he didn't know the tetramorph, and he didn't understand the four fixed signs, and he didn't understand that the phoenix and the eagle, he didn't understand any of it. Now he's going to tell you that that guy's a Jewish guy. That's not the sun and the moon. He's not ascending to heaven, even though cultures around the world will tell you that. They're all tricking you. It's all a lie, but Archaix says the truth. F is John. John, I went through the ladder of works, God's consideration, how long he continued. Mean you work, you do your great work, you ascend up that ladder, and God's going to tell you, well, when you're ready and when you're not ready. This comes right from from the book itself. And then he's going to go on to say, and I don't know if I have the right here, but basically he says that this mirror that they're looking at on the left there, they're looking into a false construct. This is human beings appearing into there, and you can even see the sun and the moon there, and they're looking into this mirror / thing, whatever, and then he attributes it to basically this is the Phoenix timeline and that sort of stuff. That's what he does. Watch the video yourself. I don't think I have the video, the clip here, but then you just go to, I don't know, like other pages in the book, and you're going to see well, that mirror is now, you've got mirrors looking at each other. So they're not, are they peering into a false paradigm? Now he's going to lay on to what his opinion of this stuff means. Once again, never sourcing the material itself. How about in what is in the, so on the right here, then you see, what do you have here? What is it? It's the tetramorph. It's the fixed signs of the zodiac. Scorpio, Aquarius, Leo, and Taurus, all coming from the middle of the what? The Bible. That's what that is. That's what that book is. Okay? And what do you have? So once again, is this the Phoenix phenomenon because you find a Phoenix? Or is there an ox phenomenon too? Every 138 years the ox comes by? No consistency whatsoever in his cosmology and his understanding of the symbols. Here's that, once again, here's the tetramorph. They're showing you. So exactly what I started this whole live stream on, that I was saying that he didn't understand or couldn't even pick that out, this same book is telling the exact same thing.
Again, Phoenix. There's two of these diagrams just like this in this presentation. The next diagram is going to blow your Phoenix veterans. It's going to blow your mind. This is the Phoenix right here. Here's interesting. I found at the top it says folio 526. So interesting to me. Why is 526 interesting to a chronologist? You guys know. The Anno Domini calendar, which was created by the Roman Catholic Church to hide the Phoenix phenomenon, by their own admission, to hide the Phoenix cycle of 552 years, was created in 526 AD.
So this one, he just pointed to the top of that number and was like, this is folio 526. And this refers to, and then he goes, why is this interesting to a chronologist? Well, because it refers to the Phoenix timeline. Okay, well, then you could just go to that book and find, that's just one of the folios, because folio is a page number, for Christ's sake. I don't even know what to say. So there at the bottom there's folio 526, and then from the exact, what's the difference, what's Archaix's position on the difference between a double-headed eagle / Phoenix and a single-headed one? Because they're shown both. What's the difference? I don't know. But here's folio 519. Here's folio 404. It looks like here's folio, 506. So do those page numbers refer to the dates of your Phoenix cycle as well? He's just riffing. He has no idea. He's just showing you things and, there's a Phoenix, so therefore it must have to do with the Phoenix timeline. That's called confirmation bias. And it's really bad too. Just a few more and then we'll end this.
It's because he's blind. He's blind to the actual world that he lives in, this massive construct. Here it is. Here is the imposition of the zodiac on humanity. It is an imposition. It is not natural, nor is it real. This is the zodiac that was arbitrarily created the exact same time. There's no exaggeration here, guys. I'm not being dramatic. It was the exact same time in history the Old Testament was written. The zodiac was also created. Within 150 years, the New Testament was written. So, yeah, guys, if we're going to grow up and understand what's going on in the world today, we need to divorce ourselves from these false paradigms that have been foisted upon us.
So once again, you have him saying it once again. The zodiac, he's already proven that that's a false paradigm. It's an imposition, that sort of stuff. And then the dates and all these things that he's using, well, we've already shown that that's complete nonsense. So he's using that alleged information or perspective to show that this is a false paradigm. It's an imposition, that the zodiac is false, that sort of stuff. Well, guess what? Well, we've already shown that you have no idea what you're talking about when it comes to that. So now he's going to go, and this is once again I'll show you where this comes from. I think I have the graphic here. And I'm going to show you exactly what every other occultist, essentially, that writes about this stuff tells you about what exactly is the symbolism of this illustration. Now, of course, he's just going to say, all of that's fake. All of that's false. And what I have is the truth. So now let's watch this, because this is more of him deconstructing this alchemical illustration, and then we'll go into the nitty-gritty of what he has to say. And this one, to me, is, I hate to say this because I'm not trying to sound condescending or anything, but it's extremely laughable.
It's because here it is, a perfect depiction of the construct. Why is it relevant? There's the Phoenix right there in the middle. You can't miss the Phoenix. There's the Phoenix right there. The Phoenix right here in this picture is in juxtaposition to the sun and the moon. And what the surface meaning is designed for you, for you to look at the phoenix and see the sun and the moon, and maybe you'll make the connection. Well, man, the sun and the moon are in the sky, the phoenix is above that, then maybe the phoenix is something that happens in the sky as well. And that's all good. But there's a double meaning here. It's a deeper meaning. This picture doesn't scratch the surface to what you're going to see in this presentation. The phoenix is a phenomenon, and it does represent a concept, resets. But that sun and that moon aren't the ones that are in the sky. These are symbols for something else. That concerns why the phoenix visits us. We're gonna get into that in this presentation. Here's the underworld. You see this big old cave? Look at this big old cave. The artist put a cave here. This is a mountain. In the underworld, we got people just hanging out. But they're not ordinary people. They're elite. They got crowns. A man and a woman. They got crowns. Here they are right here. And then you have in Latin all these alchemical processes like distillation, coagulation, putrefaction, solvent, sublimation. You have all these Latin terms right here to get you to think that this is just talking about alchemy, but it's not.
I don't even know where to begin there, but let's do it. So first off, that's an entire illustration that's going to show you the zodiac. It's going to show you the sun and the moon. It's going to show you the alchemical wedding. It's going to show you the mountain in the center of it and everything like that. He's going to say all of that's fake. All of that is a distraction. Okay. So what the man and the woman in the center are, of the center of that mountain. Now, once again, the mountain represents the center within you. This is what the Axis Mundi is all about. And once again, you find this all over the world, and I don't think he understands it all. So this is that man and woman in the center is not the elite that bed down during the reset cycles of the phoenix. What it's known is a very, very common and widely distributed concept throughout alchemy known as the hieros gamos, or the holy marriage, or the alchemical wedding, alchemical marriage. It is a sexual ritual, if you will, that plays out a marriage between a god and a goddess. Now, what this is actually talking about is spiritual rebirth. And this is, once again, you understand this concept, you're going to be able to go into the works of Shakespeare and understand what's going on. You're going to be able to go into the work of James Joyce and understand what's being said. You're going to be able to go and say, why was there a marriage of the Lamb of Christ? It's because this is what it's a reference to. It's recognizing that mankind is born from opposites. That's what the sun and the moon represent too. Meaning, born from a man and woman a man's energy and a woman's energy have to come together to create a new being. And this is, of course, a spiritual doctrine. This is the birth. This is being reborn. Remember when we looked at the symbol of the UN and we said there's the Vesca Piscis and there's the eagle and the phoenix, and then it's died, and then what's right above them? Two people getting married. So he's saying that's not has to do with the alchemical marriage or the hieros gamos or anything like that. That's the elite. That's why they have crowns on, embedding in the underworld while the phoenix cycle happens. Okay. Well, so now you're going to have to basically say that about every alchemical illustration that shows the merging of the sun and the moon, which is a some on the right there. There is like the sun and the moon are just making out. It's an alchemical marriage. It's an alchemical union. The sun and the moon represent the polarity of the energy that's within us, and we have to merge that to what I call the celestial beam of faith, the singular celestial beam of faith. So are these two, man and woman, the sun and the moon, the mater and the pater? Is this what they're showing too? Are they bedding down? It even says coitus at the top. You know what coitus is, right? So are these guys, they're not in some underworld or something like that and bedding down for a cycle of the phoenix? What is this? So I guess we're going to have to just throw away. Here's the sun and the moon at the very top, and this is the fountain of the Mercury, because that's the end goal of alchemy, is basically the creation of the great work, which would be mercurial, if you will. Here's the sun and the moon, man and woman, king and queen, merging together, of course, right? Just so you know, Adam and Eve, when we talked about earlier that the zodiac, or the Old Testament, New Testament is zodiacal, and then we pointed out that Adam and Eve, which are the progeny of God, that there are Cepheus and Cassiopeia, and they're right at the top of the dome. They are. Do you know what they're referencing? That's king and queen. That's what it is. Cepheus is the king, and Cassiopeia is the queen. This is the merging. This is the man and woman coming together in paradise. Why do you think, once again, we talk about this all the time on this channel, why do you think Eve was carved from Adam's rib? Because Eve was inside of Adam. Because it was an androgyne. It was the merging of the man and woman at the very beginning. Because it makes sense that, hey, guess what? There needed to be a split. What comes after one? Two. So the whole idea is to bring back this. Okay, how about this? Here's the sun and moon, and of course there is a phoenix there in the center one, yes, because the phoenix is a symbol of rebirth. No one's questioning that. It's death and rebirth. And of course, this has nothing to do with your spiritual work at all. This has to do with the phoenix timeline, according to him. All of these must, right? Okay. How about this one? Merging of the sun and the moon twice. The sun and the moon, then there's a phoenix. Oh, look, that must be the phoenix cycle. This is the alchemical cauldron. This is the alchemical vessel in which you have to do your work. And from there, as the fire rises the phoenix. By the way, that's very pious, by the way. I don't know if you saw that. Same thing with flood. It's basically a subtle reference to pi. This is, of course, the completion of the great work is known as the Hieros Gamos, the alchemical wedding. And you find this all over alchemy. So either all of these, and none of these guys are embedded in some sort of underground cavern or cave or whatever. Nothing of the sort. But so what are they doing? Is this all trying to hide the phoenix cycle? Just so you know, and then he said, well, that's not the sun and the moon, obviously. Okay, well, then what do you think it is? Okay, but beyond that, he says that those things in the center there, I think I have, I'll get to that in just a second. The things in the center where it talks about the 7 steps of the alchemical process, putrefaction and coagulation and all that sort of stuff, right? Well, he's saying, well, that's not really what it's about. It's about this other thing. Okay, well, then you're going to have to go and refute that with every single alchemist. Now, there's been different alchemical stages, right? Because this is metaphor, basically, right? Sometimes there's 4 alchemical stages, sometimes 7. I think this book, there's like 11, that sort of stuff. But basically, and you can even see what's on the left there. The 4th step is the composition or conjunction. This is the bringing together of the opposites. The fifth step is the putrefaction, purification, that sort of stuff, if you will. So either all of these people that actually wrote this stuff have no idea what they're talking about and this is all a Jewish trick, or somebody's full of poo-poo caca. Anthology of the Secrets. Wed the red man to the white woman and you will have the whole magistry. I think that's Edward Kelly. This comes from the alchemical writings of Edward Kelly, which I have somewhere. I don't know where it is. Somewhere. Alchemical writings. Here we go. Right here. This comes from the alchemical writings of Edward Kelly. Once again, notice he never actually puts forward the books that he's referring to. Hermes says this: join the male to the female in their own proper humidity, because there is no birth without union of male and female. Plato, nature follows a kindred nature, contains in it, and teaches it to resist the fire. Wed the man to the woman, and you shall have the whole magus, basically, right? Purify husband and wife separately in order that they may unite more intimately. For if you do not purify them, they cannot love each other. By conjunction of the 2 natures, you get a clear and lucid nature, which then it ascends, becomes bright and serviceable. Hermes, Plato, Edward frickin' Kelly are all telling you exactly what this whole alchemical process is. But apparently they're all lying. How about Michael Mayer? Michael Mayer, who's showing you squaring the circle here. That's one of the things that's being referenced here. This is exactly what Michael Mayer, great mystic Michael Mayer is. Make a circle out of a man and a woman, and out of this a square. That's squaring the circle. That's what the Great Pyramid of Giza does. Out of this triangle, make a circle, and you will have the Philosopher's Stone. And what does he show you here? What's inside that circle? It's a man and a woman. Make a circle. Unify. Unify the man and the woman within you, and you will be reborn. This is what all of these things are talking about. And this is what we talk about. That what is this really all about? Is this about some actual physical androgynous being? No. Has nothing to do with that. What it's doing is basically being a holistic person. It means you have to embrace your feminine side and your masculine side. And when you do that, you actually become the mighty strength of the whole being. You become holistic. That means and I've said this numerous times, that means you have to focus on your nurturance, your sensitivity, your sweetness, supportiveness, gentleness, warmth, passivity, cooperativeness, feminine traits. But you also have to, recognize your independence, your dominance, your aggressor, your protector, your provider, your strength, your courage. Those are masculine things. The total being brings both of them together, and this is the alchemical work. By the way, all of this goes up to right where Moses, right, and the burning bush and the fire of the Aries, all of that sort of stuff. Guess where this wedding happens? Exactly where we say it does. In your thalamus. Your thalamus is right by your pineal gland. It's right by that burning bush. What is your thalamus? According to the etymology, it's the receptacle of a flower. It's the inner chamber. It's the sleeping room. Hence, figuratively, marriage, wedlock, inner chamber, bedroom. Why are you saying they go into a cave? They go into this underworld. It's actually not underworld. It's above ground, so there's not underworld, but it's a vault. What is the vault? It's your thalamus. You're going into the center of your brain, seeing God face to face where Jacob saw the pineal, going right past a burning bush, which is Aries. Epithalamum, I'm not sure if I'm saying that incorrectly, I apologize, but it's a variation and derivation of thalamus, and what is it? It's a bridal song. This is the alchemical wedding that's going on right here. That's what all of this stuff is talking about. There's your thalamus, the bridal chamber. Right there is your pineal gland. You know what's right there? Well, you can even see right there. That's the burning bush. So he mentions the alchemical stages. Well, so we're just going to deny every alchemist who were not Jewish. Most of these guys were not Jewish, if you will. Especially the ones he's referencing here. They were all from 1500s, that sort of stuff, in and around 1500s, 1600s. All of those guys were, a lot of them, German and Christian. These are the alchemical stages. So none of this actually means any of that. It's a reference to the Phoenix cycle. And this will be one of the last ones we look at.
We have the harvest symbol here. It's another reset symbol, but it's even deeper. It concerns the forced exit from the construct of human souls. When those human souls, or actually it's double meaning, the end of human avatars and the transmigration of souls into new avatars. That's why the baby's in his hand at the same time as exiting. Because remember, in the biblical material, it was very clear, God is the Lord of the harvest. He's the Lord of the harvest. Humans are the harvest. But a human is only an avatar. The real thing that is being harvested is the immortal souls that are ready to leave the construct. Those that aren't ready to leave the construct come back as this little poor bastard right here. Here he is right here. See that little baby? Yeah. That's a human soul. There's the sickle. That's a human soul that got reaped. His previous avatar got reaped. Got reaped. Killed, reaped, taken, reset, done. And he's still in the construct right here. Offered up to the construct. He came back as a baby. There he is. That's the story of all of us. There he is right there. So again, we have all these concepts going up to the top, going all the way up to the top of this deal. But you cannot miss. And I'm not going to sit here and pretend to know what the heart means, what this mirror is. He's got a sword, and this is a knight. This is a lady, maybe a healer. Here's a king with a scepter. Here's a priestess or a queen with a spear and a lamp. Here's a labrys. Here's a ruler with a labrys. I'm not going to sit here and pretend to know what all it is, and nor do I care. But I'm not going to ignore the Jewish symbolism here, right here. Here we have Nike, like a messenger god. He's holding a six-pointed star. Okay, that's the star. That's the star of the god Remphan in the Old Testament. I believe it was Hosea said it was the symbol of Molech, tabernacle of Molech. That's the symbol for the burning bush demon. So here it is, reinforced right here. What is this? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. There it is. That's a hexagon. That altar right there, platform, is a hexagon. So Ignis is fire, Eris is air, Terra is earth, Ave is water. Here they are right here. This is designed to make you think that it's talking about alchemy. It's not talking about alchemy. There's a lot more deeper associations. Again, I have to remind you, please keep in mind the sun and the moon in juxtaposition with Phoenix does not mean the sun and the moon in the sky. It has a deeper meaning, and we're going to get to that. We're going to get to that.
Okay, so he's looking at that and he's like, hey, this Saturn figure, he's like, and actually he gets some things right here, that the Saturn actually does represent the idea of human beings coming here, and then in this sort of sense, Saturn trying to keep you in this sort of construct, if you will. Okay, that I actually kind of agree with that. But then he goes on to show, he's like, I don't know what any of these other things are. We got this woman here, and this, this person has got a heart and stuff like that. Well, it's insane that you don't know what those are, because it's very clear what those are. Those are the 7 planets that go through around the zodiac that is literally around the central mountain in the center. That's what they are. The king and the queen at the top represent the sun and the moon. That warrior on the left there, that represents Mars. If you go right across, that's Jupiter. Do you know why that's Jupiter? Because Jupiter has the thunderbolts. That's what Zeus Jupiter is a figure with thunderbolts. That figure right there is Venus. And Venus has, of course, the heart, because Venus and as the mirror, because what is it? Venus is a planet of beauty. And of course, right across from Venus is what? Saturn. Of course, that's Kronos. These are your 6 planets, if you will. And then, of course, it goes right to the top. And he says, this is a Jewish symbol. And then he says, it's Nike. Nike's a Greek god. What are you talking about? Okay, it's like, at least it has nothing really specifically to do with Judaism. That god right there, clearly, anybody that has done even the most basic study of symbolism, especially alchemical, would tell you that that's Mercury. These are the planets. Venus, Saturn, Mars, Jupiter, Sun, Moon, Mercury at the top. And that's, of course, Mercury would be at the top, because why? Because that's the end, the mercurial goal, the Mercurius, Hermes Mercurius, Trismegistus, that sort of stuff. That's the end goal of alchemy. It's the great work. He didn't even know that. So if these are not the planets, as they clearly are, they're in the center of the zodiac, for the love of God. If that's not, then we have to say the same thing about all these, that none of this stuff here, when it shows you the 7 planets, Mars, Mercury, Venus, Jupiter, Saturn, Sun, Moon, that all of these illustrations by separate alchemists over how many different years, it's all a lie. But his Phoenix timeline, that's the truth. Every single one of these that show there's a tree of life on the very upper right there, as basic as you could possibly get with the illustrations. As above, so below, a triangle pointing up, a triangle pointing down. There's a tree of life, which represents the tree of life within you. There's the man and the woman coming together and merging. There's the sun and moon above the man and woman. And of course, what do you have? The 7 planets, the 5 above, and what's at the very top? Mercury. Mercury. So then he goes on to say and I think he mentioned this before, that of course there's the phoenix. So every time you see a phoenix, it has to do with the phoenix cycle. No, it's a symbol of rebirth. And you know what's happening? The human being is being reborn. They went to the temple of the cave of the human being, the thalamus, right by the tree of life. They merged opposites of the sun and moon. This is not the elite bedding down underground while reset cycles happen. This is an alchemical illustration, which is telling you the very steps that you have to make in the alchemical process will lead you to the inner chamber, the thalamus, and you will be reborn through the opposites of the sun and moon, and that's what the symbol of the phoenix is. Guess what happens? What's above the phoenix? Straight above him, Mercury. This is Rebus. Same sort of thing. One of the most famous, a very, very famous alchemical illustration, one of my favorites. This one totally knocked me on my socks when I was really, researching this early on. There you have a man and woman on the same body. Why are they on the same body? Let me ask, why is there a phoenix and it has 2 heads, one looking this way and one looking the other way? Because it's a representation of the Hieros Gamos, the alchemical wedding. There's your planets right there. What's at the very top of their head? Sun and moon, Mercury. So here's Mercury once again. There is what he looks like. He said that that's Jewish, holds the 6-pointed star standing on the 6th, and so therefore it's Jewish. And then, but not if you look at every other illustration of Mercury or Hermes. What does that look like? That's the god of, this is Hermes, Mercurius, Trismegistus, etc., etc. He doesn't even understand that. Here it is again. I don't know if I took these. No, I don't think I did. I have one where I took, when we were in Europe, I specifically made a collage where I made pictures of Mercury and that sort of stuff. So then we say that this mercurial god, by the way, this is all 6 around 1. That's what it represents. This is what the 6-pointed star represents. A hexagon or hexagram is not particularly Jewish. It's fundamental polygonal, geometry. God made it. So there's nothing specifically Jewish about a Star of David. So if you see a 6-pointed star or hexagon, that doesn't mean it's Jewish. Okay? So this is exactly where he's standing in this sort of sense. It's 6 around 1. That's what the hexagon represents. And you can actually find this, once again, in key symbols around the world. The Freemasonic compass is in the square. The Mogan David, or the Star of David. The seed of life. What is it? It's 6 around 1. All of these are hexagonal. Does that mean that the symbol of health being the serpent going up the staff and the 6, does that mean that's Jewish? We even know that the menorah isn't specifically Jewish, right? I mean, yes, the Jews, it's obviously related to the Jews. They use it clearly, but that doesn't mean that it's just theirs. There's the key row. It's a symbol of the Lord Jesus Christ, who the Jews reject. And what is it? It's 6 around 1. I even put the math on there for you. So he doesn't have a clue. And this is what I'm pointing out. This is why it was necessary to do this live stream today. So this is from this. This is, by the way, he's saying, oh, you don't see any, references to the actual people that wrote this. This is High German. This is when it actually comes from. Spiegel der. Don't ask me to butcher that. The first is Kabbalah. They're telling you about Kabbalah. The whole book is about that. And this is all written in Old German or High German or whatever you want to call it. And so then he says that on that illustration that here, it's right here, I'll go back to this, that ignis, eris, aqua, terra, those are just put there because they want you to think that this is alchemy. It's not really. They just want you to think this. Okay? Okay, maybe that's true, even though it goes completely in line with there's the 7 planets and there's the zodiac and there's the mountain in the center and here's the alchemical steps that you need to take in order to go through the purification of merging the opposites so you can get to the thalamus, all of that sort of stuff. And of course at the bottom the guy's blind because he's lost in the world, as we all are, hence why the Fool is the first card in the tarot deck, because we're all the fool at one point. But then we have to go through a process of learning. We have to go through a process of humbling ourselves. We have to go through a process of critical analysis and critical thinking. And we have to do good research, not what he's doing here. So then he said, for earth, air, water, and fire. They're just putting that there because they want you to think this is alchemy. This comes from the same book. Did he just want you to think that the book in which he's talking about all this stuff in is philosophy, astronomy, alchemy, and virtues? It's not really about that. It's about the Phoenix timeline. So when I've ripped on all of this stuff before and then people were like, well, Marty, what are you talking about? This is what I'm talking about. This is probably all together maybe 20, 30 minutes of a 4-hour presentation, and you can just go one after another, after another, after another, and completely refute the things that he's presenting as absolute fact, and not only presenting as absolute fact, as using it as proofs of his Phoenix timeline. And by the way, it's coming in May 2040. This, by the way, this is a little collage I put together, just a minute or two, is called confirmation bias. Every time you see a phoenix, it has to do with my timeline.
So in the sky, we have the phoenix. Well, we literally have 5 phoenixes. One is prominent. These are 5 different phoenix periods in history. Here's some dragons in the outer heavens, but there's all kinds of stuff going on in the heavens here, guys. This is their concept of reality. Yeah, there's a phoenix up here. There he is right there. How do we know it's Phoenix? How do you know Jason's not lying to you? You see that? That looks like a Phoenix. But I know because it says Phoenix right there. There's 2 pillars, guys. One of them right here is represented by the Phoenix. Again, a lot of these older pictures, they're thrown in there. I don't know. This is conjecture on my part because I don't see any evidence. Let me look real quick. I see the alchemical Christian stuff, but in this particular image, I don't see a single Judaic symbol. This is the circle of phoenixes. This is every time the Phoenix phenomenon appeared in history and did what it did. They're represented in different ways because the Phoenix phenomenon didn't always do terrible things. It did invoke changes sometimes. These are all phoenixes. But what's this pyramid in the middle? It's a phoenix. There's a phoenix right there in that pyramid. The symbol of resurrection. It's also the symbol of resets. It's all right here. Now, how do we know that this is a Jewish rendition of the construct? Well, first of all, we have all this alchemy here, and we have all this astrology. We have the construct right here, and you can't miss the tetragrammaton at the top. We don't have Odin's name at the top. You don't see Shiva's name at the top. You don't see Bokika's name, Viracocha, Quetzalcoatl. None of these gods are named at the top. You don't see Zalmoxis at the top. You sure don't see Hercules, Athena, Athene, Knoph. You don't see any of them. Geb, Nut, none of them. You don't see them, guys.
And why don't you see any of those gods at the top? Because this is a Christian drawing of alchemy. That's why. Because they didn't worship Odin. They didn't worship any other god. They worshiped the what would be understood as the one true God, represented by the Tetragrammaton. So it doesn't make any sense why there would be any other God at the very top. As you know, if you read the Old Testament and New Testament, the God isn't rejected. It's not like Jesus came and served some different God. No. So what is he even saying here? I have no idea, but it doesn't confirm or, substantiate anything that he's presenting. Literally nothing.
Aphrodite's not there. None of them. You see the Tetragrammaton. You see the actual stamp of the demon that popped out of a burning bush and gave a contract to some people who agreed to that contract and have received the benefits of that contract. Everything promised to them in the book of Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, and Deuteronomy, that everything promised to them if they would worship that bush, if they would worship the entity that came out of that burning bush, everything promised to them has been given to them.
Okay. Well, I think that's enough. I think we've done enough. So I really appreciate everybody that does stop by and has paid attention to this. I think this was necessary to do, and I guess I was the guy to do this. But I could keep going, by the way. I mean, there was a bunch of other stuff, but because I knew this was going to last about 3 hours, and I don't like to go 3 hours, right? We like to do about 2.5 tops. We could have just kept going. He does another, I don't know, several hours in this one presentation, and you can just go once again, point after point after point, and refute directly what he's saying. It's important that we do. It's important as critical thinkers, as researchers, as truth seekers, if we want to make a better civilization and home here on Earth for our children, it's absolutely necessary that we do our due diligence, vet who we're presenting in our podcasts, or if we're going to go on somebody like this's channel, well, maybe you should vet what they have to say. If you're one of these people that just go on his channel or present what he's saying because you get subscribers and likes and it's going to get me a lot of traffic, I don't really like to associate with people like that anymore, because that does no good. It doesn't do any good for our clarity. It doesn't do any good for, once again, the future of our children to absolutely trash. And this is what I mean, and this is why I'm doing this. Absolutely trash the sacred sciences. That doesn't fly in my book. But do you know what does fly in my book? If you're honest with the Phoenix cycle, you're honest with the symbolism of the Phoenix, and then you can fly up to heaven and become a good bard. You know what I'm saying? So, all right, that's going to do it. I appreciate everybody that does that stops by and supports what we do here. If you'd like to become a good bird, you can become a Phoenix bird, Aquila bird, Cygnus bird, or you can become Tom of the Pete, my bird. That's right. You can become a Phoenix bird for $7.77 a month. That's right. So anyway, once again, Gnostic Academy, 7781 County Road 3440, Mountain View, Missouri 65548, and of course we have Venmo, Buy Me Coffee, Cash App, Subscribestar. If you would like to support, if you have some money and you would like to support the work that we do and realize what it takes to put together presentations like this and actually sit through this nonsense, then it might be valuable to you. That's all. So you can donate via the website if you'd like to there. And of course, we're streaming to YouTube, Rockfin, Rumble. We have the podcast and all the podcasting places. And we like to say thank you to Content Safe for getting us on the old bit shoot over there. We appreciate that. You can also watch the documentaries that we have, the astrology of the Book of Mark, of course, Flat Earth, the Ultimate Litmus Test, Dear Wolfgang, and of course, Project Whistleblower. This is, and for anybody that does get this far and you haven't watched Project Whistleblower, it's a documentary in 2 parts, and I would highly recommend it. That's the kind of work that we do around here. So you can also get us on the Flat Earth, Sun, Moon, and Zodiac app. That's Dave's app. That's right. There we are, the Sunday sermons, and of course, we have the church store. That's how we keep afloat. That's how we keep alive. And we'd like to keep doing this. I think it's important. So we really appreciate you guys. I just want to say we got some thank yous, right, Jennifer? Did you already send them? Yeah. Okay. Let's say, we do have YouTube memberships now. We just put that on. I didn't announce it because I don't even know how to do it or whatever, but it is what it is. So, what's that? Oh, we have memberships. Yeah, so you can become a member. It's like $4.99 or $5.99 a month or whatever. There's no benefits to it or anything like that except giving us money. What's that? So, but it's a way to support us. It's basically just another avenue to support us if you'd like. I might end up putting a bunch of the videos behind like the whatever for just members or something like that on YouTube, but I don't know. We'll see about that. So yes. Okay. Let's say thank you. Shelly Thompson, thank you so much. Philip Collins, thank you. David Dix, love you guys. Keep on rocking with the best sermons ever. You're welcome. Bruce Hutton, thank you. I am old but learn something new each week. Yes, you do, Bruce. Thank you. We appreciate you. Looking forward to next week. Thank you, Mr. Bruce. And of course, we had a lovely Deborah Stiles sent us this, like one of these hats, a little hat. This is for my wife or whatever. She started crocheting and then she got me a hat. So really appreciate that. I actually needed a new hat, so I appreciate that. Thank you so much, Deborah. You are the man, or the woman, I guess I should say. David Bergeron, you're making a difference. Keep going, brother. Catherine Reich, bless your efforts, Marty. I've been praying about this, hoping now to be followed up by another deep dive addressing how the Mason narrative was hijacked. Defend truth with facts. Amen. Yeah, no problem. We can do that. Robert Thomas, Darren Radfelder, Nils Albon, Paul D., Roland Peter, Interverse. Love you, Interverse. Eugene Jocks, Janet Garcia, Jeremy Hines, thank you so much. Jared Poole, thank you so much. John Vina, best prayer writer ever. Thank you. Yes, we do. We are doing prayers every morning. I write them out every morning on the Telegram channel. If you'd like to start your day off right with just reading a 30-second, 1-minute prayer, it's just a good way to get your day going. I enjoy writing them, and people seem to like them, so that's good. Alicia Crawford. Daniel Hagar, Angela Morris, blessings to you both, Janine M. Grassi says. Virginia Murray, pray for Archaix. Yes. Jennifer McLaughlin, thank you. Sunday mornings are a weekly highlight. Thank you so much. Caber Muscaso, thanks for the great sermons. Thank you. Alex Meter, thank you. Brother Marty, thank you. Eric Cosell, thank you. David Weiss. David Weiss says penis backwards. That's what he says. He says synap. So, Deborah Steil. Thank you, Marty, for debunking this guy. I actually feel sorry for him because I think he really believes all the crap he's dreaming up in his head. This is the problem. It's like a lot of people want to just like immediately be like, you're a fraud, you're a shill, you're trying. I think for the most part, what you really have is just a lot of people believing their own bullshit without doing some serious reflection into what they're presenting and what they're saying and the conclusions that they come to. And especially that's a problem when you start to make money doing that sort of stuff. Because then if you have to go back, then it's like, ooh, that's my money maker right there. And that to me is just, that's unacceptable. That's not what we're here to do. So it's hard for me to wrap my head around how so many people don't read any of the books he references and just goes along with everything he spews. I'm just glad that I read a lot and I know that what you preach is actually the truth. And when I don't understand something, I know you'll be able to clear it up for me because you really do research everything you teach and you absolutely know your shit as opposed to making it up because you think it sounds good. Thank you very much for saying that. And even that said, challenge what I'm saying. I, as well as all the good birds, are so blessed to be part of the best church ever. Thank you, Marty, Jen, and all the good birds. Thank you. Andrew Masonette, good morning all from Las Vegas. Love when you bust these guys up with knowledge. Love me some church. Thank you, Andrew. Interverse Podcast, there's way more books behind Marty that you can't see. Truth be spoken. Preacher Teacher spitting so much truth, just like I knew you would. Lovely joy, bliss. I promised you 20s. Here you go. Cheers, Kevin and Jen from La Florida and Small Axis 10. Thank you so much. We really appreciate all the people that come by and support what we do here. We're very much hoping that we are able to keep this going and get on to the next year. We really hope so. But we'll see, I guess. So anyway, really appreciate you guys. Have a wonderful Sunday. May you always keep yourselves in the love of God, looking for the mercy of our Lord Jesus Christ unto eternal life. May his grace be with you all. Amen. We're going to listen to a Brian Jonestown Massacre song, and it's called Don't Get Lost. And that's a good little adage for everybody out there is don't get lost out there in all of the information and all these people that bombard you with information and things like that. It's real easy to get all of a sudden into the weeds and lost and think that you're on some path. And I think that we really need to step back and with a lot of these people that present stuff and really, really go in with a fine-tooth comb and see, is this person trustworthy? Is what they're saying true? It's necessary to do. Okay? Guys, next week I think we're going to talk about, I think I called it like 10 steps to manhood, something like that. But basically just, I think we're going to talk about manhood, like fatherhood, that sort of stuff next week. So I think that's what we're going to do. So anyway, guys, love you very much. Thank you all for being so amazing. And thanks to everybody that participates in the Telegram chat and all that. We really appreciate you guys, okay? So that's it. As always, many blessings and much love to all. And guys, don't get lost out there.